Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024, at 6:30 p.m. in the Historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting public hearings on certain fiscal year 2025 department budgets.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for April 2nd, 2024. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during tonight's public hearings. Input options during the live meeting include: in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input for the public hearing they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate which public hearing you would like to speak to in the chat function, or note that you would like to speak during the appropriate section. If you are participating via phone, indicate which public hearing you would like to speak to during the appropriate section. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. This information will be reiterated during the meeting. Attendance for the session is as follows: Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Farber.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel.
Here.
Sprank.
Here.
Wethel.
Here.
And City Manager Van Milligan.
Here.
Thank you. Our public hearings tonight are on certain fiscal year 2025 department budgets. Mayor Kavanaugh, I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Adrian. Well, we're back at it again this week. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. First up tonight is the Parks Department, so we will allow them to get up here and get rolling. And just a quick reminder for everybody who's here, if after every single one of these, there's 4 different presentations tonight, and after every single one, the first thing I'm going to do after a presentation is done is ask for public input. That'll be the time to come up and talk about anything you want to talk about there. And then from there, we'll bring it back to the table for discussion about each of those, and then we'll do that 4 or 3 more times. Okay, Marie?
Great. I'm going to kick you off this evening. My name is Marie Ware, and I'm the Leisure Services Director. And the reason why I kind of talk just a little bit before we start is that we have 2 different nights at Leisure Services. Many times you have all the department all in one night. So tonight is part of what we do, not the whole thing. And it's Leisure Services because it's Parks and Recreation and everything else we throw in. And that's what makes it such an absolutely great group of people to be able to work with. As I was thinking about tonight, we have so many different people that work for us. So I added it up, and it says we have like 92.3 FTEs total. But the difference for us, from many departments, is that number is made up of so many temporary individuals that come to work for us for very specific reasons and very specific amounts of time, whether it's in the summer, whether it's programming and other times. And in order to do this, we hire so many people. And I think if you think about all the ads that you've seen over the last couple months, what you see is that there is those of us that'll speak tonight that you see in this forum. Everyone else knows all those temporary people because that's the one that's at my playground. That is the one that taught me swim lessons. This is the one that helped me to learn whatever it so happens to be. And so we are so diverse and we are so blessed by having so many different people that work for us with so many different skills. And the one thing that they all have is they care about people. And they care about them in so many different ways. They wouldn't be working with us if they did not. We also have those people with the expertise. So when we look at our Parks Division and we look at our other divisions, they come to us with so many different things. They have varying education levels, they have varying work experience. Some of them have retired and they're coming back to be able to do a second job. And so we're very, very blessed as a department to be able to have so many people that care so much, and that's who our citizens know. They know all of them. You all see us because we're the ones that do all the work in the background. They're the ones that are on the front line. So I'm really excited to be able to have you see all the things that are going on. The leadership within the department, and those are the ones you'll hear from mostly tonight, you'll hear from Dan, Steve, Heather, and Antonio, each on their specific items: Recreation Park, Community Impact, and Multicultural Family Center. Kristen's here as our administrative assistant and the customer service side of things. And then Jared, who's the new project and facilities manager, he's in the Coast Guard Reserve, can't be with us tonight because he got deployed. So we're pinch hitting a little bit, as we always seem to do when it comes to budget time. But I'm excited for you to hear about all the different things that we've accomplished throughout the year, as well as what those future initiatives. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve to go ahead.
Thanks, Mary. Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff. Steve Faisal, Park Division Manager for the city, and I'm going to be presenting our fiscal year 2025 budget presentation. So Marie just talked a little bit about staff, and she's 100% right. We couldn't do it without the staff we have that's out there on the front lines every day. I have some incredibly talented staff in all areas, which I'll talk a little bit about as we go forward. We do have a staff member here tonight that works for us during the season in our toll booth, so thanks for coming. I'd also like to recognize our Park and Rec Commission, thank those individuals that volunteer their time to give us guidance, give us feedback on things we're working on in the park, in our leisure services department, and they give us great insight, and thank you to them for being on our commission. So I'm going to talk a little bit about creating an equitable community of choice tonight, specific to parks. So parks are equitable. So this slide shows low to moderate income districts in the bluish color, and the overlap is a 10-minute walk. So one of the determining things that our National Recreation and Park Association uses is how far is it, how much is it, 10-minute walk to a park from your home. So looking at this map, we have well over 60% of our parks that are in these low to moderate income areas. So pretty incredible. We're continuing to add parks this summer, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but we're definitely continue to strive to be equitable and provide the services that people like to enjoy. So as I always usually say every year during my budget presentation, we're not just parks. We are the Park Division, but we're not just parks. So we have over 30 miles of trail throughout the city that the Parks Division maintains. We're constantly adding to that. Last year we added a short portion of trail around the solar field down on 16th Street. And currently right now, we have a contractor working on a trail project on Chapman Schmidt Island. So we're super excited that we're continuing to expand our trail network. Interesting fact in this picture, you see the pergola. That was actually built by my staff this last summer at Harvest View Park. So great job. That structure had begun to fail. We needed to remove it for safety reasons. And they were able to rebuild it in-house, so saved us some money there, and they have some really good skills. So trees, as in our Park Division, we also have our forestry activity. We're focusing on emerald ash borer, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But trees provide so many benefits to the community. We have some great staff on our forestry crew, and they're constantly out making sure the streets stay open during storms and responding to calls and trying to increase our urban canopy. We have a horticulture division in our department. If most of you don't know, we do have a greenhouse up by Eagle Point Park. Our horticulturist does an amazing job every year of planting annuals, hanging our over 350 hanging baskets throughout the city. And we're super grateful to have her on staff, and she creates some pretty amazing landscapes. Some other areas that we take care of, the Bee Branch Creek area in the Greenway and the detention basin, Grandview Ave Boulevard. We are working on some new items hopefully this year related to Grandview. We've been working to try and reestablish some of the peonies that have been lost over the years due to construction, because we all know that most of the utilities, unfortunately, are in the middle of the boulevard where all of our peony beds are. So we have some other plans coming up related to the perennial beds and some other things. So looking forward to seeing some improvements this year along Grandview. Some other areas, we take care of the downtown Main Street area and the Town Clock Plaza. We have flower planters down there. We put out tables and chairs for the season for people to enjoy our Main Street area, and also work with the Downtown Main Street Association to help them with events and whatever they might have going on. Industrial center maintenance is another area that we take care of the maintenance out there, mowing the grass, maintaining a lot of the native areas that are out there, and making sure that those industrial centers look very nice and presentable. And one of the neat things, the reason I mentioned Technology Park on this slide is because we're working on our partnership with the Dubuque Audubon Society. So this is a sign that's being proposed to being put out in Technology Park in the undeveloped lots. So we will be working with them throughout this year to get these signs installed. One thing we have done in the past, which we will continue to do, and this is in both of our industrial centers, so Tech Park and Industrial Center West. We're not really sure if there's this kind of bird habitat Industrial Center West, but we're not going to mow these till August, and that's always been our standard practice for us. We wait till certain times of the year to mow these areas down. So we're looking forward to partnering with the Audubon Society and helping them with some of this educational stuff. Okay, so getting to numbers. As you can see, we're asking for property tax support of a little over $4.1 million, which is about $61.70 per year for the average homeowner. So not too bad, pretty cheap. All right, covering some prior year highlights. The top one I want to cover tonight is Comiskey Park. You were all present at the ribbon cutting, so it was a pretty amazing event. This was a little over $2 million project. It included what you can see there in the photos, a splash pad, our first splash pad for the city, a new playground, some picnic shelters, and a basketball court, and then some landscaping and sidewalks included with that project. So pretty neat. We had an amazing turnout. I can tell you last week or the week before, when it was actually 70 and not snowing, the park was packed. The Easter egg hunt they had over the weekend, you probably saw in the paper, the park was packed. So we have some amazing things going on in that neighborhood. Super excited, and we're looking forward to kind of the next phase of Comiskey. I'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to pull out my sheet here. So we have submitted a grant with the National Park Service Outdoor Recreation Legacy Grant. So Marie worked on this grant. We worked on this grant. The amount that we're requesting is $1,973,850, and we are there will be a city match of the same amount, which we're budgeting in future fiscal years, so not in fiscal year 25. What this will allow us to do is, we originally had Comiskey set up for a phase 2, a phase 3, and a phase 4. So phase 2 was a parking lot and another basketball court, and then the additional phases were another basketball court, some more shelters, eliminating the current older basketball courts that are at the other end and the tennis court at the other end of the park. So we're hoping that this will get it all done once and done, so we can come in and get the project completed all at once without having to do it in phases. So we're super excited. We hope that we get awarded this grant. They've made some rule changes previously. You weren't eligible to reapply for a second grant because as part of Phase 1, we did get a $588,000 grant from ORLP, so we're resubmitting, which we're allowed to do now. So it's super exciting. So we're looking to seeing if we're going to be able to do that. Another little story about Comiskey. You may have saw in the paper on Sunday, there was an article about Dubuque Senior High Jacob Williams. So he was named the Telegraph Herald Boys Basketball Player of the Year. And I just wanted to read the 2 quotes that were in the Telegraph Herald. Every day in the summer when we'd have time, we'd go over to Comiskey Park and play one-on-one. I really feel like that helped me find a love for the game and become a better player. My dad woke me up one morning and said, "Get up, we're going to the Dream Center." I would practice there, then go home, and then go to Comiskey Park and hoop until the lights went out. So another just a little snippet of how important Comiskey is in that neighborhood and for the residents that live there, and for the hopefully new and exciting things that will continue to come past our first phase. We know it's going to be a super busy summer again down there this year. Something else we completed in the last year, we were able to replace the playground at Avon Park. We also continued our Tree City USA designation. I also like to highlight our partnership with Dubuque Trees Forever. We planted 190 trees last year, calendar year, and 154 of those were planted by Dubuque Trees Forever. So we appreciate that. They also started a pruning program where retired city forester Steve Pregler went out and pruned some of these new trees that they've planted in the last 5 years, and they pruned over 300 trees in 2023. Trees Forever does an amazing work to get people involved. In these photos, you can see we have, the Fighting Saints are involved. In the center photo on this one, that's Anderson Sansey's daughter helping water the trees. And Laura always has told me this story about the photo with the little boys and their little Power Wheel Gators. They were so excited. They wanted to help spread mulch. They wanted to help do everything. So staff and volunteers put mulch in the back of their little gators, and they drove around and delivered it to the trees so people could spread it out. So a really heartwarming story about engaging the community. This was out in Creekwood when they were mulching trees last summer. So thank you to them for being able to get the volunteers and get consistently volunteers, because it's difficult sometimes. So we thank them for that. One project we're working on currently that will be done in May is our Flora Park volleyball pickleball court renovation. So this is 6 courts that were originally volleyball, pickleball, more geared towards volleyball and striped with pickleball lines. What our plan here is, these courts will be more painted like pickleball, but also used for volleyball. They've got these net standards out today that actually are multi-use court nets on poles, so you can easily crank it up for volleyball, and then if you want to play pickleball, you can crank it back down. So we're excited to have this project come into completion in May, and so that'll give us, access when our recreation department doesn't have volleyball activities going on. It'll increase the number of pickleball courts that we have. We have 9 dedicated courts at Veterans Park and Miracle League Field. We did stripe 3 courts at Eagle Point Park for pickleball. So we'll have the 6 here. That'll be the combination. And then I'm also planning on striping the courts at Comiskey. So hopefully we can draw some pickleballers to Comiskey as well. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about, this has all come to council for your approval, are our 3 mini parks that we're building this summer. It's been a long journey to get the funding for these parks. All 3 of these mini parks are being funded by American Rescue Plan Act funds or ARPA funds. So we started engagement last fall in November. The weather was actually nice enough in November that we had engagement meetings at each location, and we had great turnouts at all of our public engagement sessions. We also did engagement online and through social media. So some of the things that, I'll kind of talk through each one if I can. So some of the things that the public, because we always do public engagement, we want to engage the public, and especially the neighborhoods, because these are mostly neighborhood parks. You know, what do you want to see in your neighborhood park? We're not going to just go out and say, oh, Steve wants this, or, you know, Dan wants this, or Marie wants this. Nope, we want to do what we can to provide with what the neighborhood has said. So at Eagle Valley, this is the concept for Eagle Valley. It's a small climbing structure, a small pavilion, and then a small kind of a playground with a slide. And as part of this process, we also gave them some options. So once we came up with, this is the concept, then we went back and said, well, do you like the concept, and what color would you like the pavilion to be? So for example, at Eagle Point, or Eagle Valley, excuse me, they got to pick the style and the color of the pavilion. So to talk a little bit about that, you know, pavilions can come in different roofs, you know, 4 sides, 2 sides, a slope side. So they got to pick the roof slope, and then they got to pick the color of the roof, and then they got to pick the color of the posts along the pavilion, and they also got to pick from a couple different versions of the playground. At Westbrook, they got to pick the playground. There's a couple different playground options, and they got to pick, there's some play panels, 3 play panels in this structure, interactive panels, and they got to pick their favorite 3 out of the 6. And then English Ridge was an interesting one because we initially sent out the original concept, and when we sent out the concept back to the public to say, here's what we're thinking, originally the playground was set up as more of a nature play with sand and boulders and rocks, and the community was like, we don't want that. Nope, that's not what we want. So we went back to the drawing board. We changed it up back to a kind of a nature playground type structure. And at English Ridge, they were able to pick, let's see, where am I here? Let's turn my page. They were able to pick the same thing. They were able to pick the pavilion roof structure and colors and the post colors, and there was a couple different varieties of park furniture, benches, trash cans, bike racks. They were able to pick a certain group of those. So we're moving forward. You should see hopefully public hearings coming in the next month or so. We're trying to get these off and going so that we can get them built this summer so we can do a ribbon cutting in the fall. All right. Some other things we're going to be working on this fall, because we have, you know, obviously our mini parks projects going on, and plus some other projects we're working on in-house. We'll be tackling our comprehensive parks master plan, as well as our Jackson Park restroom and amenities capital improvement project. So I want to talk about Emerald Ash Borer. This is our standard slide just to provide some general information on how many ash trees exist out there or existed when we did the inventory, how many are street trees and how many are park and other property trees. So as of the end of the calendar year, we were able to remove 1,100, we've currently removed 1,178 of the 1,750 ash trees, so we're making good progress. Most of the trees that are left are trees that we're treating or injecting, so we're continuing to monitor those throughout the year, and we'll remove those that continue to decline or die if the injection doesn't hold up too well. We're seeing good results. I don't think we'll save all 500 ash trees, but I think we'll save some in the long run. And we also removed 127 stumps in 2023. I wanted to mention a little bit about a grant. So we have applied for, and we have been tentatively awarded. We finished up all the paperwork last week to finalize the paperwork. So we have applied for and pretty much almost been awarded an urban and community forestry grant. So we're working with Gina Bell and Sustainability, and the amount is It's $22 short of 1.5 million. So that's the easier way to say it. Our goal is to plant 5,280 trees in the next 5 years. Originally, our number was 6,600. What we realized was, after some discussions with the Forest Service, was that the first year is really planning and getting staff hired and getting all of your ducks in a row, and then start planting the second year. So we kind of took a year's worth of planting out to make the program better, and to make it more efficient as we start moving forward once we get the grant officially awarded. So they're all going to be planted in multiple disadvantaged census tracts, and Gina's created a cool website that's on the page here, sustainabledubuque.org/branching out Dubuque. Has all the information. You can go on the website and see if you qualify to get a tree planted. So if you're looking for some trees, go online, go on the website. You can type your address in, and it'll tell you if you're eligible for a tree or not. If you're not, we also have additional funds for trees to be replaced. So reach out to the Parks Division and say, hey, I didn't qualify for this, but I'm looking for some trees, and we'll keep your name down, and then we'll work with Dubuque Trees Forever to help get some trees planted. Okay, moving on to recommended budget requests or improvement level packages. We have 6 in the Park Division. The first one is desktop computers for Park Division staff. 3 of these are for my supervisor positions. They currently have iPads, but we're moving more towards more administrative duties, so I'm providing desktop computers for them, and one is for all staff to check emails and work on projects. We're looking at a utility vehicle for Veterans Memorial Park. Originally, before Miracle League at Veterans Memorial Park, we did not have a utility vehicle up there for maintenance because the building was very small. We had a tractor with a mower, and we just drove that around to pick up trash, do things like that. Since Miracle League has come along and been absolutely amazing for us, we moved one of our utility vehicles up there to help do the maintenance of the park, taking out of another area that we use it for in our greenhouse activity. So we've decided that we need to get our other one back into our greenhouse activity to continue to perform efficiently. So we're requesting this utility vehicle for Vets Memorial Park. We're also requesting a plate compactor and jumping jack. So last year you were gracious enough to approve of funds for our mini excavator, and I can tell you that it's been amazing. Our staff is super skilled, but what we found is, okay, we're out doing all this digging, we're doing all this work, but we've got to put material back, it's got to be compacted in, and we kept borrowing stuff from Public Works, which is great because we have an amazing partnership with Public Works, but as we all know, summer's Public Works busy time too, so it's just coordinating with them. So this is a plate compactor you kind of walk behind, and then the jumping jack is one of those ones where you stand and it just throws you all over the place. So that's what that request is. It's related to our purchase of our mini excavator, which staff is very thankful for. We're also looking at purchasing a dump trailer for the forestry activity. Forestry activity currently doesn't have a trailer. They have dump trucks, but they don't have a trailer. The trailer is going to help us continue move forward with our tree efforts, hauling trees, transporting trees, hauling mulch, possibly hauling our skid steer, things like that. So that's the request for our forestry activity for a dump trailer. The last 2 we have are mowers. So the first one is a tow-behind prairie mower. As we continue to expand our prairie areas and pollinator areas, some of those areas need to be regularly mowed or regularly maintained. This machine is something you would put either behind a tractor or tow behind a gator. Instead of mowing at 3.5 to 4 inches, which your standard mowers would mow, we can mow up to 7 inches high, which is better for prairie. The second one, or the last improvement level request, is for a remote control mower. And I attached a picture there because it's a big number, but this is not your mow your own lawn little robot mower. This mower, you can see it says 52 XP on there. That's a 52-inch wide deck mower on that machine. They come up to, you can get them up to 72 inches. We're really looking forward to possibly having this machine. As we know, Dubuque is hilly, and there's a lot of places and spaces where our staff is currently mowing on some pretty steep slopes. This mower is meant to be operated by a person in a safe space with a remote control in their hands running this mower. We also know that this could totally benefit other departments. For example, Public Works and the flood wall, engineering and detention basins. So we're excited to be able to put this request in and possibly share it across departments. All right, so moving on to our capital improvement projects, there's 4 projects. The first one is for Bunker Hill remediation. This is for $400,000. Our administrative offices and golf course, pro shop and snack bar at Bunker Hill has some foundation issues. The foundation is beginning to fail. So this is some funding to figure out how can we fix the foundation. There's other problems with the building. The building's rather old and has been added onto multiple times. So this is to begin the process of first fixing the failing foundation wall. The second project is low to moderate income park improvements. This is CDB funding. This $150,000 will be most likely dedicated to Comiskey Park, future phases. Some funding for industrial center native planting. So I'm going to talk about pollinators here in our last slide, but this is to continue planting additional natives in our industrial centers where either we have vacant lots or we have areas that are detention areas or things like that to encourage pollinators and other things in industrial centers. And then the last one there is $15,000 for the Washington Community Gateway. So this is some funding to look at what we can do with the small square that's at the corner of 14th and Elm in the Washington neighborhood. All right, so from a performance measure standpoint, this year I wanted to talk about pollinator beds. I thought this is a pretty cool picture. You can see the bees on the flowers. This is actually was last summer down on Main Street. So one of the things our horticulturist does is she really takes into account what we can do to, one, not only increase our pollinator beds, but what can we plant as annuals that will encourage pollinators to visit our places and spaces and our plants and our flowers. So pretty neat photo there. Our target's 25. We added a couple last year, so we're hoping to add some more this year. Like I said, I have some amazing staff that does some of these things, so we're looking at where's our next spot, where can we put pollinator beds, where can we put some more native areas to really try and increase our pollinator areas that we have. And let's see. All right. And that ends my presentation. I wanted to say thank you for your support. This is a pretty cool shot from Cleveland Park. So thank you for your support. And again, I want to thank my staff. And I meant to thank the GIS department for that cool map at the beginning. So shout out to Nikki and her department for helping us with everything she does in her department.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it. We are in a public hearing to discuss the Parks Department budget for fiscal year 25. Do we have any public input on this particular budget this evening? Yeah, please come on up. Yeah, if you just come to the mic and then you can please give us your name and address to begin.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jim Meter. I live at 2283 Hoyt Street. I'm here with interest in the dog park. I find it's a gateway to the city. Many of the people who arrive there, who use the park, are out of state. They're travelers. They're parents of students. Many out of state folks. It's a year-round park. I don't know how many parks without buildings have people coming there 300 days a year or more. It's well utilized, but I feel it's been a little neglected. Lots of mud. The fencing is getting weaker. It'll hold up for a while. But the turf is probably a big issue. I have many other ideas. I don't know how much I want to bore you with all of this, but the trash cans, they contain a lot of dog waste. They're about chin high and about this big. You walk up to that and flip up the lid to get rid of your thingy. I sure wish it was down by my knees, not right here. It'd be nice to have, 4 or 6 of them too, so that they'd be distributed where people would use them better. The turfless area that's around the entry mainly, it extends quite a ways, but it prevents a lot of folks from venturing out into the park to play with their dogs, to clean up after them. I think there'd be a lot of benefit to, maybe as simple as wood chips, to make it, something you wouldn't have to wear rubber boots on. The trees that overhang the park in several places, big trees overhanging the park extensively, some of them are crumbling and there's an awful lot of debris on the ground. A lot of people complain they don't want their dogs running with sticks. I guess I know why. I knew of one that took one in the throat because it was running and as it lost control of the stick. I would propose that you'd consider an additional park along 16th Street on the B Branch Greenway. As you would head east on 16th, as you're going under the interstate, immediately to the right is an area where there's off-street parking, which would be such a safety benefit for all of our pet owners who have to parallel park along 35-mile-an-hour roadway. I've seen accidents, 3 of them. I hear horns honking a lot. It's not the best position for all of our activities. Consider you getting out of a car with a dog on a leash. You got enough trouble without 35-mile-an-hour traffic right at your heels. But on that area that's, it's surrounded by that road with the parking on it and the wooden structure and the trail that runs along the B Branch. It's already equipped with nice lights, some trees. I don't know if it'd be allowable to use the interstate as a shelter. It'd be someplace to get into the shade or out of the rain. It's a nice spot, and it's already got a lot of geese use it. We'd share it. But I'd like that to be considered, just somebody look at the possibilities. We're getting new parks around here. I'm really proud to see all the great improvements that are going on in the city. Makes me glad to be a Dubuquer. I won't pound you with any more of that stuff. Just please do keep us in mind.
Thank you, Jim,
much.
for your comments. Any other comments? Well, let's do public input first, and then we'll come back to you for that. Yep. Any other public input on this? Okay, do we have any virtual input?
There's not.
None?
No written input.
And no written input. Okay, Steve, back to you.
I just did want to say thank you to Jim. Jim spends a lot of time at the dog park as a volunteer picking up waste and, he keeping the dog bags full. So I thank him for what he does there.
Well, thank you, Steve. All right, open it up for questions and discussion. Yeah, Mr. Sprank.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve, I truly cannot thank your department enough for
how Comiskey Park is and looks, and the usage in the community is just amazing. When I keep telling people about that park, they're just amazed. I'm looking forward to seeing how more people discover the splash pad this summer, as once we get that open soon. Well, not too soon, because it's a little too cold for that today. But the biggest thing is I really just appreciate how far you can stretch your department with what you can do. And definitely, I agree with the idea of investing in equipment that can make your safer and more make your guys' manpower do more. So I'm looking forward to seeing that new mower whenever you guys get that out and about, because I know people who've been on the mowing crew, and there's even Flora Park. There's some steep hills on that people don't realize. So excited. So thank you for all that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. So I have 3 questions or so about the poison-free parks. So we have 15 of them or so?
Correct.
And so what are our lessons learned since we've started that? I mean, I know that, what have we learned about the poison-free parks?
We've seen good success with our pesticide-free parks. Our biggest struggle with our pesticide-free parks, and we are aware of it, is weeds in playgrounds. So that's something that we're always recruiting volunteers for, to help us try and get some of the weeds out of the playgrounds. And that's the reason why, as we build new parks or we're renovating existing parks like Avon, you'll see the poured-in-place surfacing. That helps us eliminate that. We've had good success appreciation from the community to be able to go to a place where we don't apply any type of pesticides. The turf, from a turf perspective, we never treated our turf in our park areas except our Veterans Memorials and our softball complex. So the turf has remained the same. We haven't really seen any difference in that.
So are there any, I mean, since this has been a movement, have there been any herbicides that are poison-free, that can do the job without have that toxicity?
So there's a number of different things you can try or use, and we have tried some of them. There is a vinegar that is stronger than your household vinegar that will potentially kill weeds. What we found with that was that the smell was super, super strong, and it lasted for at least 24 hours. So we kind of veered away from that. There's salt brine that you can do a mixture of salt and water. That will initially kill maybe the leaves, but doesn't always necessarily kill the root. And that's also the same with boiling water and burning. We try not to do too much burning in our parks, but we have tried like a weed burner to burn the weeds off. But again, it's burning the top, but it's still leaving the root. So eventually they come back. But it is more natural practice where you can maintain it as long as you're doing it on a frequent basis, coming back in with those types of things. There are other alternatives out there. I can tell you recently we haven't tried anything new, but we have continued to decrease our pesticide use.
So the farmers, of course, do rotation of crops, and would we ever think about, like, 1 out of 5 years, use a pesticide on a certain park and kill the roots? Or maybe it's not that big a problem, but I'm just trying to think. You mentioned that the citizen reaction has been good, and that's great. And do you get any citizen reaction like, wow, there's a lot of weeds in this park?
Yes, I mean, I wouldn't say a lot. We get concerns over a number of things in our parks. Just, it could be a number of things. Weeds is one of them. One of the other things that we also try to do is, one of the big things has been Eagle Point Park. Eagle Point Park, we converted 11 acres of turf to prairie. Now, it takes 3 to 5 years to prairie to get established, but if the people don't understand prairie and all they see is a bunch of stuff that's, 6, 8 inches tall when they drive in the park, they're like, oh, well, you're not taking care of the park, it's just full of weeds. Well, the education piece has gotten bigger and bigger for us to educate the public to say, no, we're going to a more natural practice. We're not mowing that turf anymore. We switched it to prairie that is in areas that the public wasn't necessarily using for picnicking and barbecuing. But we've had to put up signage, especially at Eagle Point, because Eagle Point was groomed for so long, but originally Eagle Point was a prairie. So it's just that education piece and getting the public to understand where we're headed going forward.
Well, thank you. And the prairie is really neat. I mean, my wife and I go at Eagle Point a lot, and I think it's really very effective and in good spots too. You're right. You don't feel like those are just kind of empty spots and don't get a lot of family activity. So, and I think it's coming along really well. Well, thank you. And so you're looking at this, you're always looking at the poison-free, pesticide-free options and see what we can do.
And it's kind of cool. Our horticulturist is really good at that as well. So when she's growing in her annuals in our greenhouse, you can actually buy beneficial insects, and they eat the bad insects. So we buy good bugs. It's just one of those cool things where you don't see it because it happens in our greenhouse, but she's forward thinking that way and always looking at how can we do this without applying, certain things to the annuals to get rid of the bugs. Because, aphids, all kinds of other bugs. I'm not a horticulturist, but, whatever bugs there may be. So she uses beneficials, which are bugs that eat bugs.
Great.
And
Thank
they're good
you.
bugs.
Thank you for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Ms. Farber.
So I want to thank you very much for talking about the expanding pickleball courts, because as you can imagine, there's many resident demands for this recreational amenity as a lot of the population is aging out of tennis into pickleball. So I was very pleased to hear that we are expanding that, because I get a lot of calls and requests about, are we going to have more pickleball courts? So this is just great news. And then I also want to applaud the efforts on Grandview for more flowers and more beds, because I drive off of Grandview every day, and it's just really, in the olden days, it was just a gorgeous tree-lined avenue, and it is one of the major corridors that actually visitors see when they come into Dubuque off of the two highways. So I look forward to that. And then also, where do we buy the good bugs?
I will find out. I can see the invoice on my desk, but I can't picture the name of the company that we get them from. But
I just think that would be great information for the public to have.
Yeah, I can look into
And it's a
that.
little education about the fact that we all could have good bugs that would help propagate other things for us. So thank you very much for all that you do, all the beautification in the city. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Goodbugs.com. Good business idea right there. Ms. Roussel first.
Thank you. I'd just like to state I have a really unique position in my role at Dubuque Trees Forever, and I just wanted to state what a pleasure it is to work with the forestry team and how amazing it is that our community can work with volunteers like Dubuque Trees Forever or the Audubon Society to really expand the work that you have to do to keep track of the wonderful amenities that we have in our community. So thank you for your partnership, and thank you for all that you do to make Dubuque such a beautiful place to live. Thank you.
Ms. Wethel.
So I wanted to just ask some questions about an item that was not approved. Number 3 of 9 on page 4 of our packet, the 2 full-time park rangers. So it had mentioned that those 2 positions, I know not approved or not recommended, that they were eliminated in 2015, but they were actually 2 positions that were previously held by your department, is that right? So you had 2
So
rangers?
Correct. So we initially had, and this is for additional hours for our temporary park rangers. So we initially had fully law enforcement certified park rangers. We eliminated those positions in 2015. One individual was actually moving on to a job with DNR. The second individual, we transitioned into our maintenance department, our park maintenance department. So we solely run, right now, we run our park rangers. We have 3 of them that work from basically what we call our park season, which is the first Saturday in May through the 4th Sunday in October. We have 1 ranger that works evenings on Monday through Thursday, and then we have 2 rangers on Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. But that's to cover the whole city, right? And that's to cover all of our parks, our campground, all those things, Port Dubuque Marina. anything that kind of leisure services. And we help PD when we can. So if it's something that our park rangers can help assist, the police department to simple things like if there's a tree across the road, they can go and help, so the officer doesn't have to sit there and wait till the tree crew shows up. So they can go, or if it's small enough, they can run back to the shop, grab a chainsaw, go get it off the side of the road themselves, that kind of thing. So the additional hours that we had requested were basically to have 2 on that Monday through Thursday night shift, and then also have them working during the day on Saturdays and Sundays. And that's what the schedule used to be previously, when we had 2 full-time rangers plus 2 to 3 seasonals as temporary staff as well. Because again, parks are busiest on the weekends, right? That's when pavilions are rented and pools are full and all those things. So a lot of times my staff may get called on a Saturday or Sunday to come in during the day to fix something or flip a breaker or something where we would have a presence from Park Patrol during the day as well to be able to do those other things. My Park Patrol staff's amazing. The one gentleman he is retired from the auxiliary, he was the auxiliary police chief, retired. Our other gentleman has been there over 20 years as a seasonal temporary person, and our third person's been there, I think, 5 to 7 years now. So they know what they're doing. They're very skilled. We're working on skilling them up with the police department. We've started some discussions to get them some additional training with the police department. Because they are many times the first person on whatever it may be. Just, irate person in the park or something like that. So we're working to skill them up with the police department.
Well, it was interesting to me in reading through what was and was not approved, simply because as a goal and priority of police recruitment and retention, this actually is a pretty strong overlap with public safety as it relates to that goal and priority. And my curiosity would be in the future in, say, our goal setting discussions to talk about maybe I'll be honest, I'm going to really push goal setting of beautification and park reinforcement this year. I feel strongly that that's something I hear a lot about from my constituents. I know that you and your staff are everywhere doing everything you can do, but the work is a lot, and we're adding parks. And without adding people, I have concern about that moving forward. And so I think when it comes to our goal setting sessions, I guess I'm going to drop the ball right now, but that's one thing I feel pretty passionate about. But in particular, that item really interests me as we look at the overlap. So thank you very much for the feedback on that. And I know Jim has left, but obviously thank you for his service. That dog park is busy. It's really busy, and I validate what he says about the concern of people getting out on a busy street with their dog who is really excited to get out of the car. It's really hard for people and safety there. So I'd be interested to know what we could do in the future.
And dog parks are hard to maintain, right? So, the issue we have is the dog leaves from the concrete to go in the park. So it's compaction. And we actually, a few years ago, we actually expanded our footprint in the dog park to add more concrete to try and provide more of a buffer to have the dogs more spread out when they left the concrete. But yeah, the use is very heavy, and so compaction is an issue. When it rains, like now, yeah, it's going to be muddy, and there are numerous solutions to that. Different people, turf, artificial turf, things like that.
You want to point this out too?
So there is in FY 2029, there's $60,000 currently in the 5-year CIP for the second dog park planning. So
Thank you.
thanks, Marie.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Jones, do you have anything before I go back to Mr. Strike?
Just, I'm glad to see the robotic mower, or the remote control mower.
We'll do a demo. If approved, we'll do a demo, invite y'all out.
In my background in emergency medical services and my time I spent at NICC, I was officed at the Agricultural Safety Center. And we talk every day about rollover protection. And it would make me crazy when I see just along Highway 20, people on riders without the ROPS extended. And you've done better, you've done a lot better with that. I haven't seen that in quite a while. But that's a tough go when you're on a bad grade on a riding more. You just shouldn't be there. And you're going to solve that problem and have them not be there on the bad grade. So nice work on that. Otherwise, I think the parks look good. I'd like them to look better, but I get where we're at. I can't throw more people at you right now, but I think we want to in the long run. I'm sure glad to see that we've got the horticulture activity staffed up and some things planned and some things moving. So good luck with all of that and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks. And I forgot to mention, this is the first time since I've been here in 11 years that we actually been fully staffed with full-time staff. We do have a staff member retiring in May, but we're working on filling that right now. But this is the first time I've come to a budget presentation with not having a vacancy in our department. So it has helped. Everybody that is there has helped us, So
I probably should tell you that for the last few years, I've been fielding a few complaints about Grandview doesn't look as nice as it used to. And I've told them religiously, I said, well, we had to cut a lot of staff during the pandemic, and Park's not fully staffed yet, and we're going to get fully staffed, and you'll see a change. So I hope they don't hold you to too high a standard on that. I know we'll see a change, but I also know it doesn't happen overnight.
Mr. Spring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One kind of a follow-up to Ms. Wethel about an improvement package that wasn't approved, which I understand because it's kind of tight with budgets. But can you remind me, how many acres would you say the B branch is all said and done?
Oh, I don't know.
Approximate.
I do not know that number off the top of my head. I can try to find it. Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is the city and the feds, a lot of us invested millions, and I'm sure the city manager knows that number off the top of his head of how much was really truly invested down there at 40 million. 200, thank you, 240 in the B branch, and I want it to look nice. So eventually that'll be a push, because I can see the need for it, especially once more's finished and the trails are added, and there's a lot going on down there. So I would like to keep asking for that. We'll hopefully try to make that happen sooner than later. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Very quickly, I hope that we realize that parks are not golf courses, right?
Yeah.
I heard golf course is a nature on a leash. And, a lot of money goes into those golf courses to make them pristine. But these parks, I think, are in great shape. I mean, they are exposed to the weather 24/7, and you go through them, and they're still really nice, and people are using them. Yeah, you're going to have to clean off the table before you have supper there, probably, but that's natural. You're outdoors, so I don't know that we want to look like everything is a golf course. I mean, we want to take care of these parks in a sustainable way, which is a natural way. And I appreciate the effort to do so. And I appreciate that they're parks, they're not golf courses. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, and I'll say so part of what I want to talk about was what we've kind of heard in this theme too, but just to piggyback off of it, I do look forward to that conversation because I've heard a lot of us talking about parks and recreation, and I think a goal-setting conversation coming up here after we're done with this budget is going to be around that. But I do think it's always a balancing act, and you've learned that. I mean, it's a balancing act with staffing, which I'm really excited to hear you're fully staffed. That's super cool. But then it's always also a balancing act with, okay, well, we want things to look nice, but we also don't want, as Mr. Resnick was pointing out, poison or pesticides that could be damaging to us as people. So we're always sort of fighting that. And it's one of those things that the education piece with Eagle Point Park, I really appreciate you mentioning that because that's a big deal. It takes a while to establish a prairie, and you've informed us of that, and you've said it a few times, but we need to keep reminding everybody of that too. So I'm glad you brought it up again tonight. I'm really excited about a lot of things I heard. I was excited about the mower too. That is a dangerous thing, and I'm really happy to hear that we're thinking about safety for people in that regard, and being able to use that across the entire organization of the city. That's wonderful. And then I appreciate you talking about the second dog park planning, and also the recognition of some of the challenges with the dog park and how we can do that. Is that also part of the parks, the comprehensive master plan that we're looking at? I mean, thinking about dog parks and how that's going to work and that kind of thing? Okay. Two other questions. I know we're already at an hour, so I don't want to take too much more time, but dogs in parks. This came up, actually, Mr. Jones asked a question last week about, of Mary Rose, about any challenges that we've had with dogs in parks. When that issue came before us as a council, we made a decision to keep some parks off the list. And it was, I remember that being a very contentious discussion. It was actually, if I'm not mistaken, my first contentious discussion I was a part of as a council member. But how are we doing with dogs in parks? Do we get a lot of complaints? And this is an off the top of your head kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say overall, it's been positive. We occasionally, I think we get more complaints about dog waste along trails and places like that than we do more about pets in parks. So we do get the occasional, because they're supposed to remain in the vehicle at Eagle Point and Murphy. We do get the occasional issue on a weekend where that may come up. But I would say the pros outweigh the cons. We've seen pretty good results overall. We're trying to work more with Mary Rose too, and their enforcement officers. Can they do a little more patrolling at Eagle Point? And again, there are only 2 people, right, that cover the whole city. So, but we've talked about, what can we do to work together to help? Can Park Patrol reach out to them, or is there something our park rangers can do? Things like that to help continue to educate the public. Again, they carry a brochure, basically Mary Rose brochure in the truck. And so if there's an issue, they'll hand them out, those kinds of things. I will say we haven't cited anyone on our side, on the park side of the world. It's always just been education.
Sure. That's part of the challenge, though, with the policy itself, is that it puts an extra burden on you and your staff because we have some parks that are in a different situation than other parks.
Right.
Do you, and I'm asking you to speak for whatever you've heard, so this isn't your opinion, I just want to make that clear for everybody. Do you hear from people that they would prefer to have the rest of the parks open? I mean, is that a sense that you get open to pets in parks, or are people generally content with where it is?
I haven't heard much about pets in parks in the last couple of years, unless, Marie, have you heard anything different? Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's
it's
helpful.
been working, and it's been pretty quiet in the big picture. We do, as part of our special events permit, we do allow pets in those parks where you can't have them. So like at Murphy, they've done a couple events where pets are allowed, and I've never had people upset about that. It's
Sure.
a one-time deal that's part of the process.
Sure.
We do know that, in the wintertime, our parks aren't closed, but at Eagle Point, our gates are closed. We do know that people go up there in the winter and walk their dogs because, it's a great place to walk, right?
Right, right.
So, the control there gets a little tricky once our season starts because there might be certain people that's what they did. Well, I walked my dog here yesterday, and now today you're telling me I can't. So, but usually if it's the education piece, we can try and inform them, this is our policy, and usually we get pretty good response.
Thank you for that. It's helpful information. Last question is about trails. We didn't talk about trails much, and I'm thinking it's because trails are really expensive, and they're hard to build, and they take a long time to plan for. But it is something that comes up pretty frequently in our discussions. And I know that ECIA has a overarching sort of trails plan. No, I'm calling for backup already. Sorry, Steve. So but this is one thing that I'm thinking, because one of the things that comes up when we talk about it is trails are disconnected. They're not quite connected enough to get going. There are some places that don't have trails. Everybody would love to see a Southwest Arterial Trail because it's a great place to, especially for bikers. I'm just curious where it lands on the list currently. I saw a few capital improvement projects long-term, but not much. So whatever update you have for us and to help us to think about that would be helpful.
Most of the time, we are involved, but it's usually the engineering department that kind of builds them. So that's kind of why I wanted to get a little bit more information from Marie.
Yeah, so actually this last year, we have, like as a city, we have a group of different departments because everybody gets in it for a different reason. So we have what we call the mobility team. And so the mobility team has been talking more about that. So it has planning, engineering, us, and several other departments who are really trying to talk about it from that global perspective. Because it's pedestrian, it's bikes, it's, the scooters, it's all the different things that are out there now. When you talk about the ECIA plan is kind of like your 30,000-foot plan. And typically then what you have to do is look at it and go, okay, we now know, like generally we want to go in this area and we want to make generally these connections. The next level of that is to be able to actually hone down in even more because their plan also is about connections. How do we connect to Asbury? How do we connect over this direction and that direction? We have to get down a little more deeper in the weeds in Dubuque. So we'll have to actually dig a little bit deeper. I do expect that when we do our Parks and Recreation master planning, that will be a topic that will come up, which I think then can give not only us, but you as policymakers some additional feedback from our citizens of like, how is this? Is this really ranking like this is the number one thing we want to hear? Or is this something that it's just like, no, we want the connections and give us a little bit more information and feedback that way. But I can tell you that we really have tried to dig in a little bit deeper with a multi-department kind of look at what we're doing. The one thing that's a challenge for us right now is there'll be a grant opportunity out there at times, but we're like, we don't have any match. If you don't have a match, you can't apply for it. There was one where Mike worked to be able, the city manager worked to be able to bring some funding to the table so that they could apply for that particular grant. But as an overall, that's one of the things, because there are trails grants out there, but they're 50-50, 75-25. So unless you have that piece of city money sitting there, you can't apply.
Sure.
And that sort of thing. So that's the other piece that one would have to look at of really kind of that sustainability of building that. But at least we've really started to work on it. It's really, Jason Dubai in the planning department is a kind of our facilitator with that and is doing an outstanding job to be able to bring everybody together and talk every month about what do we know, what's out there, are there other grants, what should we be working on, as well as when you see in the capital improvements coming forward that it's the group of us, because before we were kind of disparate. Like I might see something, but engineering saw something else. And so it's like we're trying to make sure that we're coming to you in the capital improvement budget with things that make sense. They go together, they're building on something versus just what I thought in this department and they thought over here.
That's excellent information, Maria. I really appreciate hearing that. I said it was last question. I lied. One more and then we're done, I promise. The master plan, what kind of a timeline are we looking at? When can we expect to see some things and the community expect to see it?
Sure. With Jared being called to duty for the 4 months, he was actually starting to work on researching the information for us on the RFP process. So it's going to take probably an extra month or so. But literally last week, I just started kind of looking at some different cities, what they've done, what they've put in theirs, and that sort of thing. So it's my hope that throughout the winter that we can pull it all together. Being able to put together a really good RFP to be able to do that. I was just at the Parks and Recreation conference here for the state of Iowa, and I went around to each of the different vendors saying, look, this is going to be coming out. You know, I don't know if you're going to want to or be interested in it, but I want you to know this is a project we have coming forward. So I've already planted the seed with the number of the planning firms that this is going to be a project that we're going to push out, and it's going to be a really important one for us. And also that engagement piece of that. Because as Steve mentioned in his, we've learned so much about the engagement, about what it takes, and what really gives us great finished products is what we put into it in this engagement part of it. So we want to be able to do that as a part of this as well. So that's one of the pieces that isn't as well developed across the country. So it's not like you can pull somebody else's RFPs and pull that piece out and say, hey, we want to really do that. Those are things where we're really looking at, like, what are the things that we've done, and how will we be able to replicate those things and actually make it bigger? Because this is about not just a particular park. This is about really looking at everything that we have through the Parks and Rec system and being able to let people talk about where do they dream, what do they see that's missing, what are they excited that we do, those kinds of things.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for all this information. Thank you for the presentation, Steve, Marie, thank you very much. Parks are just a huge part of our community and who we are here, so it's really helpful to get all this. Okay, well, we are going to move on to our second presentation of the evening. It is the Recreation Division. So we'll just take a minute here to get things set, and then we'll go. All right. Dan, are you ready? And Corey, you're behaving, I'm guessing, over there with the fun thing. Okay.
Making me nervous.
I know. Yeah, she's going to be nice to you, though. I'm sure she is, Dan. All right. Excellent. Well, Dan, thank you very much. Recreation Division is up next.
All right, Mayor, Council, thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Dan Kroger. I'm the Recreation Division Manager. And it's my pleasure tonight to speak with you and to represent the talented staff that are in our division and all of the great things that they do. Speaking of, here is a summary of the staff that operate our programs and facilities and our customer service. Also, to the right of this, the 32.38 FTEs, which equate to over 200 seasonal employees that work for us throughout the year. And it's those type of employees that make Parks and Recreation possible. They are the front line, they are the face of our department and our organization, and they're extremely valuable. It's the people that you see on this slide that make the information that will be in this presentation possible. So I thank them for everything they do wholeheartedly. Our mission statement is to provide the citizens of Dubuque with equitable, quality, and inclusive opportunities that will create impactful experiences. Essentially, it's create settings for lifelong memories. That's a pretty cool job. We really love it. Lifelong memories have to do with so many different things. I can't go very long, whether it's at a sporting event talking to parents or at a restaurant and whatever it is, and somebody asks me what they do, and more often than not, once I say what I do, they were like, oh my gosh, I used to go to the playground program. Remember Gary Reed and all the stuff that he did? Or I used to be a lifeguard. And like, those are the kind of things that we get to have a part of, and it's really special. What we do is we administer programs. So there's a list up there of all the different types of programs that we offer. And not more importantly, but extremely important for us are the partnerships. And that word value, I started with other words. I started with leverage, utilize, strengthen partnerships. But really when it comes down to it, our partnerships are priceless. It's hard for us to do what we do without our partners. And so that's why I put value down there. They're so valuable for us for all these different reasons, and I'll get into some of them later in the presentation. But it also goes both ways. We have some very great open partnerships, ones with the school district, and just recently over the last couple of years when they lost some before school care providers, that was a conversation that we were able to have to be how can we use our resources to help you? and to serve those kids that are in need. And so we were able to do that. Also, I have listed on there city departments. So this is the opportunity for me to do a public shout out to all of the different departments that we work with, not just in rec, but also in parks and the MFC and AmeriCorps. We're constantly working with our other departments to be able to provide our services, especially in particular the Public Information Office, which I'll talk about later, and our Human Resources Department. Again, with our staffing needs and different things like that, it's extremely important that we have an open line of communication so that we can be successful. We also manage facilities and work within facilities. So Flora Pool, the marina, the golf course, those are all recreational amenities that we have that we fully operate, as well as Allison Henderson and Comiskey, the Multicultural Family Centers are areas for us to have programs, same with the Miracle League Complex and the Slattery Center. We also provide services. Customer service is key for us. Right? We're a department of choice. People have to choose to want to use our services and programs. So it's very important that our customer service staff are top-notch, and they are. Kristen is here today. She does a great job with her frontline staff. As well as scholarships, we provide rentals, whether it's pavilions, rooms, different things, ball fields. And we've always done some marketing, but a little bit new for us with our new business development manager that we have been able to hire. We've gotten more into the marketing for revenue generation, as well as a beefed up increase in social media. That's helped us a ton with our staffing needs, as well as our program outreach, and then in some other areas. So I don't think you've seen this slide yet before, but this is creating an equitable community of choice. This is a very important thing for all of us, but these are pillars that are very strong within Parks and Recreation. Resiliency for us means the ability to adapt. For those of you that have even been a part of a program or know some of the programs we do, we have to be on our toes constantly to be able to adjust to the needs of the community and or to whatever the weather might bring us or different things that might, curveballs that might come our way. Sustainability is the best use of resources. We're constantly looking at the funds that we have and the different resources and the spaces that we have to be able to improve the programs. Equity is about accessible and available opportunities. Transparency to us is about an open culture. It has to do with how open we are with staff and the ability to generate ideas, offer up suggestions, provide input. And then compassion. You have to have compassion to be in this field and really any public service for the community that you're serving. And so that is, for people that are in our department, that is a key pillar. The next few slides are going to be some of our highlights, but I wanted to start out with, again, those frontline staff. Those are the pillars of what we do, and they are our success. You can see the employee retention number there, 59%, so that is actually current. That is based off of how many people we hired last year. We are right now onboarding 59% of those individuals. And again, I said that's basically a live stat, we'll say. It was by the end of March. But that number is only going to go up because we still have more applications. We still have more interviews to do. And then once we get that paperwork rolling, those retention numbers are going to continue to increase, which is phenomenal. Also, again, I mentioned the Public Information Office as well as the Human Resources Department with our help with employee recruitment. As of the end of March, we have a 32% increase in just applications. That's over 400 more applications than we had at this time. And if you remember last year, we were really amazed at the numbers that we had already gotten then. So this is just building upon that awareness and that effectiveness, and hopefully those retention numbers kind of go to that that pillar of transparency that I talked about, where we're very open with our staff, and we try to have very open dialogue and conversations and make them feel part of the team and want to continue to grow with us. Some more recent stats as well as over the last year. So planning, part of the budget process last year was how can we look to increase revenue without necessarily large fee increases in our programs, especially our programs, not just in our facilities. And again, with our new business development manager, as of the end of last month, we've already brought in $23,000 in ancillary revenues in these banner sales, which has been a huge success for us. And then another partnership, an extremely highly valued partnership. They all are, but the Miracle League of Dubuque is one of those partners that is just constantly working, constantly trying to improve, constantly open to suggestions. And in the last, since we opened the facility, they have raised an additional $300,000, actually over $300,000 to make improvements. Then these improvements include additional bleachers, additional shelters, additional seating throughout the complex, within the facility, the furnishings, the program equipment, the tables, the chairs, the flooring. It's just on and on and on. And they continuously are coming to us, say, what do we need for programs? Or, hey, we had somebody come to us and asked us if we could look at doing X. Just an interesting story is just yesterday, we actually received an email from a local business who had done a family bingo night for their business and wanted to raise some funds for a charity. And they sent us an email and they raised about $1,500 that they wanted to give to Miracle League, just out of the blue. So it's just one of those infectious groups that's just out there and is constantly, it's just what they can do for this community and especially for those individuals in need is just absolutely amazing. Again, mention the Public Information Office. This is just one of slides of theirs that they provided me with just a number of stats as far as comparisons from 2 years ago to last year. And I wanted to pull this one because 130% increase in reach and a 381% increase in view time on our social media platforms is incredible. They're constantly pushing stuff out. We also have created some ease of access through our registration system, through QR codes and different things, where our community members, if they're interested in a specific program or a specific facility or whatever it is, they can hit a QR code and go directly to that spot, or they can hit a certain link somewhere. And it's very accessible. It's very quick. And with our new operating system, a lot of times they can just register for that, sign up for the scholarship, do whatever they want right online all at once. And it's really helped us improve our program participation, which I'll talk about later too. It seems like over the last several years, we've talked about adult sports and kind of a decrease in, especially in softball. Well, this last year, I'm super stoked to report to you that we had that 20% increase actually in adult softball. There's an overall increase in adult sports, which is fantastic. And Commissioner Farber mentioned it earlier with the addition this spring of an adult pickleball league. Those numbers are going to continue to go up. And so we're really stoked about that. Also, there was a 100% increase in our Miracle League program. That's our softball and baseball program for our community with special needs. And it's gone from, in year one, we had about 30 to 40 participants, and now we're up to close to 100 in our third year. So that's pretty spectacular. More increases. The golf course. We had a 19% increase in youth. That actually is in our low-income youth or income-qualifying youth for our programs. 11% increase in women's participation and a 21% increase in couples. What's neat about these stats is we had some really great numbers last year. We're talking almost 70% in women and some other stuff. So with the increases that we had last year in these three areas, we continued to increase them this past report cycle. So it's great to see things continuing to go up. Sometimes when you see those really drastic increases, the next year it might plateau or go down a little bit, but we're continuing to go up. Overnight dockage increased at the marina by 76% compared to the previous year. And another fun thing that's happened with our new recreation system is we finally have everything all in one. So now our marina, our golf course, and our campground are also in our rec track system. So all of the data, all of the revenue that's coming in, inventory, all those kind of things, we are now housing in one program. So that will be great for us in the future to report out on how the division is doing. Scholarships are huge for us. Scholarships are an opportunity for our low-income families to have access to our full playbook, have access to our programs, our pavilions, you name it. Whatever we offer in our registration system is available for use with the scholarship. This past year, we were able to increase the available scholarships from 200 to 300 families. Not only did we increase the number of scholarships available, but we were also able to increase the dollar amount that each family was given from $125 to $150. This past year in 2023, over $28,000 was redeemed in scholarship funds for programs. This slide kind of gives you just a visual of where these funds were spent. So you can see, roughly, not roughly, 62% of the scholarships were spent in the pools, whether it was pool passes or swim lessons. But then the other scholarships were spread out fairly evenly amongst all of our other opportunities, to the point where I know it says 0% there for pet park passes, but that's because the fees are so low for pet park passes. But people use them for those, for pavilion rentals, for Eagle Point passes, recreation classes, youth sports, and adult programs as well. And this is kind of a summary of where the dollars and how much was spent in each area of those funds. So I guess which one's first? I'll talk with the bottom one. So our income qualifying participation in free programs increased by 32%. Again, that goes back to those marketing efforts, getting the word out. And I'll talk a little bit about, we do recognize that there are still some gaps. But all those efforts that we're putting forward are paying off. One of the highlights of those free programs is in our playground program, with the 14,000 meals served in the summer as a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. That's a 63% increase from last year, which was about 8,600 meals. And that is just our playground programs. That's the Boys and Girls Clubs provide food throughout the community throughout the summer. Those are just in the areas that we program. Another great thing about this partnership is, for those of you that were around 10 years ago, you might remember we used to have to pay a little bit over $1 a meal for every meal that we gave to the kids in the summer. And because of the strength in fundraising and the partnerships that the Boys and Girls Clubs have had, pre-COVID, around 17 or 18, was when they came to us and said, you don't have to pay anymore. These are 100% fully covered by our funder. And so that's just an amazing investment, and it's just a great opportunity for the youth that take part in our programs in the summer. So our main, we'll call it our KPI, right? Our key performance indicator, at least for what we measure, is participants per program offered. And what our goal is for that number to continuously go up every year. It had a slight dip this year from 2022 to 2023. One reason is, coming out of COVID in 2022 was kind of we're back to normal, quote unquote normal, right? And people were really excited. The good news is people are still really excited about taking our programs. The reason for the dip is we actually added 150 more program opportunities last year. So our participation numbers were actually still higher than the year before, but because we offered more programs, it kind of affected that number. So now we'll say, a new baseline to work off of. Obviously, we want to continue to offer more programs as well, but we're going to work to continue to climb that number. I think what's also important to note is that these participant totals don't include team sports. So in basketball, adult softball, whatever it is, you might have a roster of 10 to 15 people that participate. Those different programs are considered, they do have a program number, but a team is considered 1, not 15. Also, what are not included in these numbers are our drop-in programs, like playground programs, our neighborhood open gym, events that we do, those kind of things. Those totals are not in there. This is just based off of how many program numbers we offer and what the registration numbers tie into those specific program numbers. So our participation is actually quite a bit higher throughout the year, but it's just not recorded in this, so we like to keep apples to apples going for our measurement purposes. Oh, the picture's changed a little bit. That's cute. Somebody got into my presentation. I really just wanted to take a minute to recognize these two wonderful women. They were both awarded by the Iowa Parks and Rec Association, which is our state association. Jennifer last year for the Community Service Award for all of the wonderful things that she does. I know that she came to you, or that we brought her to you, whatever it was, after she won that award. And then just earlier last month, Susan Stoppelmore was also awarded for the part-time team member of the year for all of the great things that she does for us on an annual basis with our youth enrichment programs, our rec and roll trailer. When during COVID, she was our champion for the handout programs out of Comiskey and some different stuff. She's one of those people that park and recreation professionals, like every organization's got one, and she's like it, right? So she'll be coming to you actually at your next council meeting, so that'll be fun. So one of the things that we like to talk about with our budget is the amount of funds that go right back into the community. Seasonal wages is a big one. I mentioned the over 200 seasonal employees that we hire. Over $1 million goes back in seasonal wages. That's just wage. That's not Social Security, IPERS, all the other things that come out. That is just in the wage line from our budget. And a lot of that has to do with the wage increases that we've done, but it also has to do with some of the flexibility that we've had over the past in hiring some additional staff for some of our programs and services. Just as a reference, before COVID in FY19, that number was $656,000. So it has gone up quite a bit. And again, a lot of that has to do with the wage increases, but it again has to do with the number of people. So for all those things that we do, whether it's facility-wise or program-wise, it costs the average homeowner $28 for our division to operate. And we have two of our largest subsidized recreation facilities, so the pools. For that subsidy of $413,000, it costs the average homeowner $6 for us to operate those two amenities for our community. The marina, which has been decreasing its tax subsidy pretty much every year for the most part, is down to $1 for us to be able to provide that gateway to our downtown from the water. And our Haley and her staff do a fantastic job with that. Just a couple of our future initiatives. The department marketing plan, I talked about the great things that the PIO office has been helping us with as far as the social media and some different things, but we want to take a deeper dive into our department as a whole, especially the recreation division, and what is our brand? How can we create something that everybody in this community understands? We have a lot of people that are moving into this community that are coming from different areas around the country that see leisure services and have no clue what that even means. Most people, it's parks and recreation. So it's important for us to be able to connect with everyone in our community. So we need to make sure they understand just by seeing our name or whatever it is, what we do, as well as how we disseminate our information. I mentioned earlier about we do recognize that there are gaps in the stuff that we're sending out and who is getting it, who's receiving it, because we see that in our programs. And so we need to look at, and we've been meeting with several different departments on, is the brochure format, the traditional brochure format, really the way to go? Are there things that maybe we should change? Are there ways that we should target sections of it and go directly to households? Or just, right now we're in the process of just kind of throwing everything up on the table and talking about it. Because some of the things that we do are traditional ways of marketing parks and recreation that everybody's been doing in the country for the last 100 years. And so there are definitely some things that we can look at to change so that everybody, again, in our community can understand and have a grasp of what we're offering, as well as let us know what we need to change or what we need to offer so they want to take it, right? I know part of the park study is going to have some of our facilities in there, so that long-term infrastructure plan, every year we talk about pools. Jana and her staff do a fantastic job of keeping them operating, keeping them functional and safe. At some point, we might need to make some changes. And so we definitely want to have a plan for that. Continued ancillary revenue generation, that non-programmatic revenue. Just like I mentioned with the banners, we want to continue on with some other services and find some other ways to bring in some more money into our division. So again, we don't have to do any drastic fee increases or anything like that to our programs and services to stay sustainable, right? And then really importantly for us, and something that we've noticed over the last year, is we need to do a better job of increasing our engagement through our resources. And what I mean by that is Comiskey is a perfect example. The number of people that are there on a daily basis are people that we want to connect with. We want to be able to talk with them and figure out what it is that they're looking for from a city perspective as well as from our department perspective. And so we need to look at ways that we can use our resources, whether it's our staffing resources or whatever it is, to be able to make that connection and to have those conversations. And currently, like I said before, that's at Comiskey. I mean, that's where the people are at, which is awesome. Not that we would just be there. There are other places throughout the community, other partners that we are currently working with and that we need to meet new ones to have those same conversations. But what a wonderful opportunity with all of the different people that are at Comiskey now to be able to sit down and talk with them and kind of get their ideas. There's 3 improvement package recommendations. The first one is for some additional funds to help us continue with that scholarship program as is. The next is a network switch installation at Maclease. I had mentioned to you before how the marina and the campground And the golf course are all now on our rec track system. The one outlier is at Macleese, which is on the old cash register. So as soon as we can get that network switch in there, we can get not only cameras, but we can also get a computer there and run our POS system through that facility. And the other one is a $10 increase in season passes for the golf course. Traditionally, what we do is we kind of alternate passes and daily fees every other year. And so this is our pass year for that. 2 capital improvement projects. One is for $65,000 for Sutton Pool operational projects. There's a couple different things there that we're going to be looking at to see if we need to either replace or fix, as well as the tree removal and replacement program at Bunker Hill with the ash trees and some other trees that have died on the course that we really want to replace, not just for aesthetics, but also for playability. Sometimes there's a tree there on purpose, so we want to make sure that we keep it that way. And with that, I say thank you and open it up.
All right, thank you very much, Dan. Well, first, we are on a public hearing to discuss the Recreation Fiscal Year 25 budget. Do we have any public input on this evening? Seeing none here, any virtual?
No.
Thank you. Anything
No written
in?
input.
Thank you very much. All right, back to us then. Yes, Ms. Farber.
So I wanted to just mention that I do have some of those lifelong memories that you were talking about, and that I remember the playground program at Jackson Park when I was growing up, and swimming lessons at the local pool, and then also learning to play tennis at City Rec under Mr. Johnny Meyer, who was the coach then. And then also, as I was getting into my high school years, I was a tennis instructor, and it was my very first job. So I'm very appreciative of these lifelong and very fond memories. So thank you for that reach out and that recall. I do have a question about the banners. I just pulled this up, and I noticed these are very reasonable prices, from $500 to $275 for the season, depending upon where you're going to be locating them and I guess the size of them. And I'm seeing that the pickleball courts are at Vets Memorial, and will there be opportunities for the other pickleball complexes once they are established? Because I think that's kind of another opportunity for expansion here.
Yes, we will say we started small. Like I said, we're doing a phenomenal job on bringing these in. There are several different fence lines throughout that we're thinking about, but we are taking suggestions from people, and kind of we'll work those in if we can into future programs.
So are you fully subscribed? It looks like your deadline is forthcoming or upcoming. April 5th, actually.
No, we haven't filled all the fence space, no.
Okay, all right. Well, very good, thank you. It's very creative, and thanks again for all that you do and for all the memories that we have, past, current, and future. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. My question is about the training for seasonal or part-time employees. I remember when I was a kid, and I first met the public, it was quite a shock, actually. There's an amazing variety of people that are not like me. And so it was, I need some help to make sense of all this. And so how do we help our young people, especially with the people skills required?
Sure, that's a great question. And again, it comes up to partnerships with other departments. So our Human Resources Department has some wonderful training videos that we've started to do throughout the organization. And we have some video sets that are set aside for seasonal employees. We have, there's 3 different groups. There's ones for our seasonal laborers, there's ones for just our general seasonal employees, and there's also ones for, I believe, our lifeguards. So we have those. Those cover a lot of things that you're talking about. They have to do with diversity, inclusion, conflict resolution, just city policy, some other things like that. And then internally through our training sessions, our orientations, we do some equity training as well as some conflict resolution. So it might have been beefed up a little bit from what you remember, or maybe not, but yeah.
Well, no, I had zero, So I had zero training as that. And as an adult, I was an umpire for a male softball league.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know it. I did that one year, one season. I made it through. But anyway, so I'm glad that it's being addressed because it is very important. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Ms. Rousseau.
Thank you. Your scholarship program it's a great way for everyone to have access to these wonderful programs, but if I were a qualified person, how do I actually access that program? Can you explain to me how that works?
Sure. We have all the information up on our website, which is cityofdubuque.org/recreation, and then there is a scholarship section there. It'll talk to you about, or not talk to you, it'll have all the information there regarding the scholarships, what's included, and then it also has links that can take you to forms that you can either fill out or that can take you to the registration website to where you can start filling the stuff out online. And then once that's applied for, that goes to our front desk staff, and they actually help with that household to get it in. And once you become an income qualifying household for a year, anything that's free, that's available, and/or scholarships, that kind of stuff, you can register for it or you can use your scholarships for it.
Oh, that's great to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Bethel.
So as it relates to probably both parks and recreation, and we heard some really good information tonight that I think applies to a broad picture that we hear a lot here in council, which is how do we become a community of choice? How do we grow our population? How do we make people want to stay here and live and raise their families? And GDDC did an interview of young adults, I will call them, 40 and younger, mostly, I think was the goal population, and ask them questions about what makes you want to stay in a community, what would you want that we don't have, or what can we have more of? And outdoor recreation opportunities were huge. And so to see things like adult softball, golf participation, the overnight docking going up so dramatically, this is an investment from our residents into programs. So I hear sometimes from people that things at the city don't make money. This is something that's not supposed to make money. It's supposed to add to quality of life. And so when we think about this and services in the future, I think it's really important for us to remember that and to talk with our constituents about it, because the value is in bringing people here, keeping them here, and making it a community of choice. So thanks for your efforts. You brought out some great points tonight. Really glad to hear them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Spring.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dan, for everything you guys did. I know 2 years ago I pushed hard and heavy for Sutton to have lifeguards, and you guys literally knocked that one out of the park by getting all those lifeguards. It sounds like we are on track to have lifeguards.
Yeah.
So that's phenomenal, and I'm glad that we're getting that retention. That it took a little time to figure it out. So thank you for doing that. So, and I'm sure my neighbors will be very excited to see Sutton reopen. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Jones.
I'm excited too to see that you're doing well with lifeguards. Can't tell you what a huge part of my summer life Flora Pool was growing up. I was just thinking in the back of my mind, it would be neat if people coming into Carnegie Stout, which is a lot of people and a lot of kids, could sign up for rec programs there, or if we could make some kind of connection there, maybe 2 or 3 Saturday afternoons, someone could be there to entice people to sign up. Seems like a natural audience there, and at the same time, rec programs could promote, hey, why don't you go to the library? It's raining tomorrow instead of coming here. So just a couple of random thoughts.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Jones. Well, Dan, thank you very much for this presentation. Every year we get some great information from you, but this year this was exciting stuff. Like these increases. And you mentioned a few reasons why they happen. I mean, I heard one was better marketing and outreach. Another I heard is you have better data tracking, so you actually have better information to bring to us because you've got systems that have been put together. Do you have any other senses of like what's going on, why we see so much of an increase in almost across the board with all these different things?
I attribute most of it to awareness. I really think, the community, Obviously, there's the people the Dubukers, right? The ones that have been around for a long time that know leisure services does X, Y, and Z, right? And we've worked very hard over the last 10 years or so at being a little bit more relevant in that we're not just the playground and the pools group, right? We do offer a bunch of other things too, and we have for a very long time. But I think there was just that awareness just wasn't fully there. And like I still recognize, like I said before, there is a gap, right? There are still people that we're missing. We have to figure that out. But I think with the social media that's been working, the ease of access, especially that the new operating system has helped us, it's very inviting. We've changed several of our policies, whether it's in refunds, how people can register or sign up for income qualifying programs. We've reduced a lot of the barriers. Now it's just the more people we can let know about these changes and just all the things that we offer, I think it's just going to keep going up. So
That's great to know. I mean, it's really nice to hear that the things that are so within our control are the things that can have this kind of an effect. I mean, that stuff's entirely within our control as an organization. So that's fantastic. Okay, tough question time. I've been sitting here digging through the 67 pages of our capital improvement plan. And I've read every word in the time that you've had your presentation.
It wasn't that long.
Was able to identify that we don't seem to have anything in there for pools, major construction for pools. So this is my question, because I understand the reasons why. I think it's really, really expensive to do. I mean, it's a really difficult investment to make. But to Ms. Wethel's point, this is the type of reason why you don't see a whole lot of private organizations just opening up a pool and saying, hey, come and swim in our pool, right? Anywhere in the United States. We've basically decided that this is something that cities are going to be in charge of, and we are going to subsidize this because it's a quality of life issue. It's something that we are going to try to do. But it's not easy to do. It's really difficult. And the years go by and we keep things going, but it does, every piece of infrastructure and every piece of equipment gets older, and it's a real challenge. So I guess my biggest question is, you've told us about the age, 30 years, give or take, right, of both pools at this point. You told us about the status in the last few years. There's stuff breaks, and we have to keep kind of, I don't want to say duct taping because that's not appropriate.
We stopped doing that.
Yeah, but we actually have to fix it in certain ways and try to do as much as we can. But there's going to come a time where we have to make a hard choice as a community. What are we going to do with these really important amenities that we have, and it's going to cost us some money? When that choice is in front of us, and Mike, this is kind of a question for you too, what are the city's options? What are the community's options when it comes to having to really rehab a pool or two, or have to maybe rebuild one, entirely, or build a new one somewhere? Do we, and when I say options, I mean, is it property taxes, general fund? Is it fees? Do we ratchet fees up really high? Do we go into debt to be able to do it? And other grants that we can find to be able to help us with these kinds of things? So that's kind of a general question. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Sure, I'll go ahead and take it, but thanks, Dan, for staying at the
You can have it,
podium.
Mike.
So, you've approved going through this master planning process, so a lot of things are gonna come out of that. And if one of the things that comes out of it, and then if the council were to prioritize that thing, which is to build a new pool or two, it would really be a referendum. So the citizens would have to vote to issue general obligation bonds to build one or two new pools. There's no capacity anywhere within our budget to make any of that happen.
And you say it's a referendum, just for everybody's sake, for knowledge sake, because the price tag is so high.
Because the price tag is so high and it's not an essential corporate purpose. So, like we're rehabbing all the fire stations for $1.5 million. That's an essential corporate purpose.
Right.
You can issue those bonds without a referendum. But to build a pool, no, you'd have to have a referendum where you get at least a 60% vote of whoever votes to issue the general obligation debt to build the pools.
And that generally answers my question about grants and things. You know, like we've leveraged federal grants for the parks, but not necessarily for pools. These things don't exist as well.
Well, you don't really know, but even the cycle of grants that are out right now, which is more than has been in my career with, you know, the programs that President Biden has gotten through the Congress, those have a expiration date, and they're probably, by the time this whole study is done and everything, I doubt if there's gonna be much of that time period left, maybe, but I doubt it.
I guess so. Is there anything in that? I mean, is there anything in the infrastructure law and in any of the laws that have passed that are grants that are towards pools? I haven't even heard of anything that's like.
Yeah, you know, we could ask Terry Goodman that question, but like, you know, we've got some grants for Comiskey Park and other things, but the scale of this kind of project, I doubt it. I don't know, maybe Marie knows.
Yeah, so the same grant that we applied for the second time for Comiskey is one that could do a pool. So it actually is a funding source that can do it. And we are the size of city that can apply for it. It's 50-50, just like you saw. It goes up to matching, I think, like 15 million, if I remember right. It currently does have a sunset, but everyone's working to actually, because they're seeing such benefits in communities like ours with this funding, but you never know, it's the federal government. So at least right now, that's the biggest one. The state does get some land and water conservation funding, but that's like $200,000, which would be in this project drop in the bucket. So it would take something like that program in order to be able to do it. Swimming pools are one that there's just only a few things that actually fund that. There's more for trails and parks development type funding versus actual swimming pools themselves.
So last question on this, and then I see Elizabeth, I'll come to you. When we did this last time, when the city of Dubuque, you know, rehabbed Flora and Sutton around 30 years ago, was it a general, or was it a referendum that we did that with? It was.
It was.
To be able to do that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've seen in the records for the pools, the actual, you know, vote yes for pools and that sort of thing. So yes, it was back at that time.
Huh. So we voted to do it, obviously. The city voted, or the community voted to do that. Very interesting. Very interesting information. Ms. Wethel.
I was just going to ask when the master plan will be completed. I can't remember.
When it will be completed?
Yeah.
I would guess, most of the time, a plan the size of what we're talking about doing, it'll take 9 to 12 months to actually go from, we signed a contract with a consultant, all the way through the engagement, through all the different processes, being able to bring it, as we do many plans with a couple work sessions, like here's where we're at, this is what we're hearing, to actually getting the final adoption of the plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. President.
Thank you. About 10 years ago, wasn't there a major upgrade of Sutton Pool? I remember bringing my kids for lessons, and then they have a new pool with some great amenities. You know, so there was an upgrade.
In 2000, they added the water playgrounds to both pools.
Yeah, 10 years ago, okay.
So a little bit more than, a little bit more than 10 years ago.
2000 minus
But yeah. No, not 10 years ago. It was
That's true.
just,
My kids were born in the 80s, so yeah, that makes sense. Okay. All right, so there was, and did you say there was a budget for that in 2000s? That was in the capital budget?
I believe so.
I see. All right.
Yeah, and there is a recommendation in the capital schedule. I think it's in 29 or 28 to replace one playground one year, and then the other pool's playground the next year.
I see.
And right now, those are at about 220,000, I think, 230,000 apiece.
Yeah, and if you could tell me, why do pools only last 30 years? I mean, you upkeep them, and it's cement, and it looks great, but I know you have to replace equipment because that's mechanical, but at some point, even the structure of the pools need to be replaced?
It depends on what type of piping they used when they built it that's inside the concrete and underground.
Right.
I know I've mentioned before at Sutton Pool, that's actually floating, no pun intended, it's the water table there, so that actually is moving. And so our drain gutters and different things aren't level. And that movement can also affect the piping that's in the concrete and underground. So different pools, depending on how they were built and, you know, what their surrounding area is like, are all different, right? There are some pools that are probably 50, 60 years old that are just concrete shells that people are able to just keep churning out water.
As part of the master plan, are they going to actually take a close look or just a perfunctory look at the condition of the pools?
I guess that will depend on how many different things we add to the RFP, right? And the funding that's available.
Yeah, not that specifically. So several years ago, well, it's now more than that.
2016. Yep.
2016, we did kind of an assessment of the pools at that time. But if you were going to go that deep, we don't have the money to be able to go that deep in a real specific recreational component. But what could come out of it is that we need to go that deep in order to be able to give you the facts and information based upon what community feedback might be.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You know, this is a really interesting discussion because, I mean, we hear about, I would say one of the more common things that sticks out to me as a theme that I hear from people is that we need more recreation opportunities, specifically spaces to play and have recreation. So especially court space and things like that, indoor spaces, but then also pools and that type of space. And I do hear every once in a while, not very often actually, but every once in a while about people saying that the pool's condition is worsening and we really need to make improvements and that kind of thing. But it's on people's minds, and I think it's really important that people recognize what a lift this would be. You know, in a community that currently isn't voting for referendums in the last two tries, I think we need to ask ourselves some hard questions. You know, if we want some of these nice things that we want, we're going to have to find a way to be able to fund them because there's not money that's just sitting in a pile somewhere that we get to pull from to be able to pay for something this expensive and go and do. It's something that we have to invest in and think about what the next 30 years are going to look like. I'm sure glad that people 30 years ago decided to invest in the two pools that we have. It's a really important amenity for our community, and I think that we need to start thinking about some of that in the next 5 years ahead, because it sounds to me like that's the timeline. We're really talking about some big ticket items here coming down the line, and if we want to keep having those, we want to keep having the access for you know, our neighbors and the kids in the neighborhood and families that, you know, our families that like to be there too, and everybody's family. I think it's an important discussion that we really seriously have, and not just pretend that money exists somewhere to be able to do this. This is going to be tough to do, but sometimes we have to do tough, difficult things if we want the stuff that's going to make the community a really good place. So, and this is just one of those many things in all these many budget presentations, but we appreciate the conversation. I think it's very helpful to have. Well, Dan, thank you very much tonight. We appreciate this, and thank you very much. All right, well, we will move on to number 3 for the night, the Office of Community Impact. We'll take just a moment. Yeah, let's, you know, people are going to leave. They're gone. I'm losing about half the council, so they're going to go. And then, no, we are going to move around a little bit. And I always remind everybody, we can hear you in the back. So for presentations, it's kind of useful to just keep going, but take a second. You look ready to go. So I think with that being said, I say we get started, and then, as you know, we're going to kind of roam around here. Might stand up a little bit more often, but really appreciate you being here for the Office of Community Impact presentation.
All right.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members who didn't run for that break, that opportunity. I know, sitting through Dan it can be tough. My name is Heather Satterley. I'm the Community Impact Director and the resident person who pokes fun at Dan pretty often. I am also, representing the Office of Community Impact, and we're one of those ands that Marie talked about with Parks and Recreation, and that's us. So last year we unveiled our plan to establish the Community Impact Division, and this year I'm excited to present to you what we've been able to accomplish in a year's time. So as a team, we have developed our office's mission, vision, and values to guide our work. So something to always kind of bring us back to is what's bringing us together within the staff that we have. So our mission is to strengthen the bond between the city of Dubuque and its residents through community, connection, and compassion. And our vision is Dubuque is a thriving community where residents experience equitable outcomes through access to resources and opportunities to serve without barriers. And our values, our service, makes sense for a division about AmeriCorps and volunteerism. For us, service has more to it than just volunteering. For us, we see service as formal opportunities, so that's AmeriCorps and volunteerism, but also those informal opportunities that exist as personal development, or those family and cultural support systems that we all rely on, and that we want to make sure that residents have those opportunities to be of service to one another without the barriers that come with poverty and other, great evils that exist in the world, right? Accountability. So we will do what we say we're going to do. That's really important for us and our team. And then ultimately what brings our team together is the collective impact. We're working collaboratively with residents, with organizations and institutions, so that together we can achieve that direct service level impact that we're trying to have, but you impact systems through direct service level impacts as well. So we want to be able to hit both of those. So our team, we have a full team for now. So here's our current team. So Sarah has been our AmeriCorps coordinator for 1.5 years. She's been with the AmeriCorps program off and on in part-time roles or contractors, essentially since 2018 for short periods of time. But honestly, there couldn't be a better person to go out and speak the amazing impact that AmeriCorps has. Sarah is somebody she's an AmeriCorps alum, she lives it, she breathes it, and she's excited to get people to serve. Brittany has been with our team for almost a year. She's 2 days away from it, so we're really excited. Brittany came to us with a master's in social work. She has experience working with homeless populations and victims of sexual assault, and she's got a lot of experience in being a volunteer. And so she came to us, as one of those people who thinks a lot about what can we do to make a difference in our community. And then Miranda joined us on May 1st, so she's almost at a year as well. She originally started with us as our administrative assistant, but she really was kind of an amazing pick for the community diversion and prevention coordinator. She's got background in criminal justice. She has a master's in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so bringing those worlds together is really important, right? Like, you can learn how the criminal justice system works, but you have to have a keen sense of how the criminal justice system impacts our residents. And then Anne Marie, she joined our team just over 3 months ago and has really rounded us out very well. She is smart I don't know what's really smart, but she's smart as she is, and she's great. And I feel really lucky to have brought her onto the team. She's also an AmeriCorps alumni as well. So it's really, really helpful to have somebody who served, to know what it's like when we're working with our members, to know what it was there in the trenches. And I have been with the city for about 6.5 years now, and I've been the director of the division for a year and a half. But you may know that will be my last presentation to you. I will be leaving the city on May 1st of this year, so it's getting a little too close, but it's been an absolute pleasure getting to lay the foundation of this division and the work that we're doing over this last year and years beyond with the AmeriCorps program. But I'm excited to see wherever this goes with the next person, because it's always fun to see like where somebody else with a different vision can take things and the impact that they can have. So I'm really proud of my team. I'm really proud of the service that I've had, and I appreciate getting to be here until 10 o'clock again with you at least one more time. One of the most important parts of our team is kind of that extended part, right? Previously, the AmeriCorps members were a main part of our team. They still are. But when you think about it, our 5 full-time staff plus what is essentially the 17.6 equivalencies of FTE, we're a fairly large division when it comes to all of our AmeriCorps members. And we act as the human resources department, and the support system and the coaching and secondary supervisors, as well as, managers of the data and making sure they're doing all of their things correctly. So we kind of are just this, like, I always think about it as like when you have a baby bird about to leave the nest, that you'd think that you'd be like, okay, we're gonna catch you, just to make sure that they go out and that they're able to do the service that they can. And really, we have a fantastic cohort this year. I really point to the fact that Sarah Berna has done an amazing job at recruiting great members, doing great service in our community. And we've been able to fill all of our full-time positions this year. And we have a lot of our part-time positions for the school year filled. As you can see, there's a lot more names up here this year. And then we're recruiting for summer right now. So if you know anyone, send them our way. So fun fact, our AmeriCorps, you'll see up here, you might be able to tell that they have happy birthday in that photo. AmeriCorps turned 30 this year, and that actually means that our program turned 24. So, which makes that a fun fact is that, well, for one, all of the community members and residents that we serve in our program, since we're working K through 12, our program's older than all of them. But we're also hiring members who are, or onboarding members who are younger than the program. So it's kind of interesting when you have something that's got such a long-standing history as this program does, to just kind of see how it's developed over the years. And then I'd also like to thank our partners with Dubuque Community School District, Carnegie Stout Public Library, our City Engineering Department, Arts and Cultural Affairs, Hillcrest Family Services, Multicultural Family Center, and St. Mark Youth Enrichment. As I said, what our staff does to support the AmeriCorps members. We really rely on our partners to, one, make sure that the service that they're doing meets the requirements of the grant, but they're also another support system for our AmeriCorps members to make sure that this is the most impactful workforce development program, really, that it can be. So really appreciative of all of the partners that we've had and that the partners that we'll have in the future. I'm excited to see where time takes us. So with that, this slide, I changed it a little bit. It doesn't look like everyone else's slide. It's more colorful. The Office of Community Impact proudly implements all 5 of these pillars in every action that we take. I believe that resiliency can be seen each and every day displayed by our members, But uniquely this year, with us kicking off our social and emotional learning program, we talk a lot about resiliency in students and how are we building resiliency in our most vulnerable and most precious population in Dubuque. And having these AmeriCorps members get to spend that one-on-one time with kids who just need somebody to like help them think through some feelings that they're having, help them think through what's going on in their lives, or help them, kind of like resolve a conflict with their friends, right? These are things that don't innately come to humans. And when we expect children to operate as adults, especially in the confines of classrooms, and these rigid systems that we're kind of having these children have to operate in based off of necessity, that's tough. That's tough for adults. It's really tough for kids. So getting these wonderful people to spend time building that skill with these kids so that they can adapt to some of the systems that we require them to, so that they can be successful in their future is really key. And it's building the resilience of our community one child at a time. Regarding sustainability and transparency, we leverage federal grants, state resources, and local resources to try and really, sometimes I think about like squeezing pennies out of air. Like we're trying to make the money go as far as we can to have the greatest impact with our programs. And so many of our grants require that our staff are ethical financial stewards. And I'm really proud of our team we always try to think of like, all right, how can we make this work without necessarily having to spend the most amount of money? We're thinking about how do we get volunteers to do this? We, instead of, we got curriculum this year for our programs, and we purchased some pre-printed curriculum, and the rest of it was digital. But as we found out that some members really needed some of those hard copies, we gathered volunteers and we printed and bound them ourselves because it was way cheaper that way. And so just trying to find the ways to make it work and to utilize the resources that we have. And thankfully, we've got some great human resources and people who have supported our program in the past. We practice equity through our efforts to recruit and hire AmeriCorps members that are representative of the communities that we're serving. I think we can do a better job. We always can. But I am proud of the work that we've done over the years to have really diverse workforces that enter and exit every single year. We have to rehire essentially 50 plus AmeriCorps members every year and then exit them out and then do it again and do it again and do it again. And trying to support them, but also trying to make sure that the people that we're recruiting are the best people for our kids, but also that the people that we're recruiting are also going to benefit from this program and from the work that we can do for them. And we want to make sure that how we treat our people is also as equitable as possible. And we practice compassion by meeting residents where we're at. That's children struggling in school, that's retirees wanting to give back to their community after retirement, that's listening and understanding that some people get really rough shakes in life and that they need somebody to listen to them and to acknowledge them and validate that experience. And so I believe that we practice compassion in every interaction that we have. So getting into our highlights for this last year, every year's a roller coaster, but we began the first year of a new 3-year AmeriCorps grant. And so this is the first change in focus in 12 years. So it was a pretty big lift, and it continues to be a big lift because it's a combination of 2 AmeriCorps grants, but it's also a big change in what our community partners and staff have been doing. And so relearning rules and processes and procedures and learning that the AmeriCorps members can't really do the things they used to do in the past. They have to do this new thing. And getting comfortable with that new thing, right? People aren't always great with change. But we've had a really good year so far. So one of the key things that comes with this, when I talk about, that sustainability and being good financial stewards, is having combined these two AmeriCorps grants together. We used to have the grade level reading grant and then the teen grant. Well, our grant financial analyst that finance was so kind to let us use for our AmeriCorps programming, and now the confidential account clerk, Toming, so Nathan and Toming, when we had these two grants, they had to run all of the same reports and do it twice for the two different grants all the time. And so it just duplicated their work. And so having done the work of combining the two grants, it's eliminated that a significant amount of work. So now that we can have an internal to leisure services confidential account clerk do that work instead of it having to live in finance just because of the amount of work that it was, right? And then, we have, with it being a new grant and the focus and a lot of the changes that come federally and statewide, having more administrative staff within our AmeriCorps program, so Sarah and Anne Marie and myself, AmeriCorps is a beast of a federal grant. To be honest, I think it's probably one of the most difficult because it has to do with where the money's going, and that's going into people's pockets, and AmeriCorps is typically always on the chopping block. So federally, they're always trying to protect it to make sure that when it gets zeroed out in those federal budgets, that they can save it, reclaim it, and try to keep it. And so that means that there's a lot of compliance that's going on. So having the amount of administrative staff that we do now is quite key to be able to continue the work that our AmeriCorps members are doing. So volunteer DBQ. So 2023 was the last year of the Volunteer Generation Fund grant. Unfortunately, the state of Iowa did lose funding in their competition for that grant. And so the remainder of our funding we couldn't use towards staffing. So we thought, all right, how can we use this in the last couple of months after we were notified we couldn't get it, and we were kind of limited in what we could use it for. And so we decided to put it towards a volunteer recruitment campaign. So you might have seen this super cool bus that Public Information has designed. We were able to put a wrap on the side, or on the driver's side of two buses. We got some billboards that were up in March and April. And then we'll have some banners at McAleese and some of those other places. Haley worked with us on those too. So trying to drive people towards volunteer DBQ, trying to drive them towards volunteering and all of the benefits that it has, while also trying to also recognize the people who do volunteer in our community and just build, as Dan kind of said, that brand awareness around volunteer DBQ. And then in diversion and prevention, Miranda's been in her position for 6 months, so we have been spending a lot of that time focused on researching the current practices and being able to connect all of these different organizations that work together as part of these systems, whether being part of the criminal justice system, whether it's in policing or whether it's in the judicial side, all the way to the community organizations that support residents who are entering and exiting into that system. And then also developing those relationships. If you've ever met Miranda, she is one of the most bubbliest people in the world, and you could never, you can't not enjoy talking to her, and she's just, she's also incredibly intelligent, and so she's done a great job at being able to inquire and ask about the difficult parts and the, successful parts, and just building those relationships up. So we're excited about kind of those next steps. So future initiatives, we will, and I will talk about this a little bit more on on our next slide is that full social and emotional learning implementation and the rollout in all of the elementary schools. Currently, we are in 6 of the 12 schools, but the goal is to fill all of our AmeriCorps positions and have all of our AmeriCorps members in each of those elementary schools. And so that would be 2 AmeriCorps members per elementary school focused on those one-on-one and small group social and emotional learning interventions from kindergarten to 5th grade. And so honing in on specific kiddos that can really use that time so that when they get sent back into the classroom, that they're ready to learn, right? So we're meeting those basic needs and we're setting them up with those foundational skills that is going to make their classroom time and their time with their teacher receiving that core instruction more impactful. We will, in the next, I don't want to give an exact timeline because of my timeline, but we've been working on basically information on what is going on in the diversion and prevention services in Dubuque to be able to provide to you the key takeaways from what we have learned so that we can get an idea of where we should move forward with in the future. Later this month, we're going to unveil a reinvigorated Adopt-a-Spot program. So our community service and outreach coordinator, Brittany, she's been working with Steve in the Parks Department, with Nikki in GIS, with engineering and public works to identify all of the different areas in our community that we need people to be willing to adopt. You know, I think the pesticide-free parks are a great example, right? Is that, Steve, there's a lot of weeds and we've got to pull them, and so people can go in and they can see that, Burden Park needs to be adopted, and you know, they were streamlining the application process so that it is easier to find what needs to be adopted, easily has a workflow that sends contacts of those community members to the right departments using the GIS system, but also allows us to be able to collect data on how much work that they're doing, how many volunteer service hours that they're putting in, and then also knowing if they're picking up litter, where's that litter at for our staff to go and pick up and make sure that's back off the streets so it doesn't blow open or blow away, things like that. So really just trying to put some legs back underneath that to try and help the different departments across the city address those needs. And then in March, we officially kicked off the AmeriCorps Alumni Association. So DBQ AAA, we're playing around with how exactly we want to brand it. But you know, our AmeriCorps program at 24 years, we've had over 1,000 people serve in just our program alone. But there's also a lot of people who have served in other AmeriCorps programs through Habitat for Humanity, Green Iowa, Iowa Legal Aid, but also AmeriCorps programs across the country that they make their way back here to Dubuque. And so we don't want it to just be an alumni association of our members. We want it to be an association of anyone who has served in AmeriCorps, so that we can have a group of people come together who are passionate about service, but that they're coming together using those shared values that AmeriCorps has instilled in us. You know, as an alumni, I'll take that with me, and personally I think alumni or AmeriCorps members are like the best people. So I might be a little biased, but they're great people, and I think that bringing together networking opportunities and opportunities of service and just people that we can leverage to do collective good in our community will be really valuable for us. So, excuse me. So to touch onto our AmeriCorps program, so this year, again, our year 1 of 3 for the social emotional learning impacts, we were impacted pretty significantly when the state of Iowa passed Senate File 496 in May of 2023. So this impacted several areas of our AmeriCorps program that was originally submitted as part of the original grant proposal. And so when I talk about the amount of administrative burden that comes with an AmeriCorps program on the staff side, this really exacerbated it, and we had to really figure out, and not just for our side too, this exacerbated it for the school district on figuring out how they could make sure that our program could work. So I'm very thankful and appreciative of the district for not completely just saying, nope, we can't make it work to us. They've been really great partners this year, and we're thankful. So to explain what Senate File 496 is and what it did to our program is Senate File 496 prohibits the administering of a formal examination or survey of a student that is designed to assess the student's mental, emotional, or physical health that is also not required by state or federal law without first obtaining written consent of the student's parent or guardian. So it also requires that districts give written notice and obtain that consent of parent or guardians prior to administering any surveys, analysis, or evaluations that the district requires. And then it also requires that district employees and contractors cannot disclose information related to the social or emotional abilities, competencies, or characteristics of the student unless we get written permission again. So what it also requires us to provide information on if we're conducting a survey on that student, it requires us to who created the survey, who sponsors the survey, how the survey is being used, and how the information generated by the survey is stored. So it's a lot of information that we also have to give to that parent in lieu of getting their consent back. So basically what that all means is for the impact of our program, right, is that originally we were going to partner with the district and utilize their social and emotional screener that they conducted on all of their elementary school students to identify the kids that, one, these are all the kids that we know need some support, right? And that was going to be our first baseline. And then we were going to look at risk levels. Well, essentially what happened is that the district was no longer able to do their SEL screener because if they could only do it on half of their student population, how would they be able to equitably serve the rest of the students, you know, without being able to actually assess those students for their different needs? So they opted to adjust how they would do that assessment based off of needs without using the SEL screener, right? So first we lost our first way to identify the kids that we can work with in our program. So we weren't able to use that. But then the second part came with administering the survey that we use to identify, do our AmeriCorps members have an impact? And so that's the DESA. Up here you can see some of the data from that. Last year I gave you some of the data from preliminary DESA assessments, right? We needed to, as a program, obtain parent permission to administer the DESA on students who receive AmeriCorps services. So due to this requirement, one, we had to figure out a different way to identify which kids we could actually serve, and then we needed to get parent permission, and so we ended up having like this 20-page packet with a permission slip, and that's really overwhelming, and we've figured out a better way to do it now, but essentially it really delayed our start, and it also made a lot of our schools really apprehensive on how can we make this work without getting our district in trouble. And really kind of what that requirement is that we can still serve a lot of these students, but we can't conduct the DESA on them. And that means we also can't report those students that we don't have that parent permission slip. We can't report that to the federal AmeriCorps agency, which puts our funding at risk because it says, oh, they're not meeting their performance measures. And it's not because we're not serving enough students. It's just that we can't track all of those students. But regardless of the disruption of Senate File 496, we've pushed forward along with our partners to implement those services. I really appreciate the school district staff, our instructional coaches, and classroom teachers who believe in the need for social and emotional learning, specifically for our K through 5 program where that permission slip is needed. Since September 2023, we've been able to get permission slips for 211 students. And so we'll be able to, as long as we can administer enough dosage by the end of the school year, we'll be able to have a good chunk of students that we're able to assess the impact that we've had on them this year. We know that we're serving more students based on their needs, but because we can't do the survey on them, we have not been collecting any data on those students in our systems. So we're just trying to be very careful around that law and being respectful of the district as well. On another note that is a little more positive as well is that, our teen program, thankfully they don't have to have those parent permission slips. So the barriers that are put in by that Senate file do not apply. And so at this point, we have 246 teens that have been actively participating in the different teen programs that we support or that are supported by the AmeriCorps members. So far this year, the qualitative and quantitative data is promising. We're seeing preliminary data that shows that students are improving in their overall social and emotional competencies. So what you see up here is this is a snapshot of some of our earliest students that we were able to get permission slips from, that those students are moving from that need for instruction and from typical, and that they're gaining strengths in their overall social and emotional competencies. It's not to say that they still don't have need for instruction, but that overall they're growing holistically in all of those key areas of social and emotional learning. And then, the stories from our AmeriCorps members reaffirm that this program change was for the best. Our members are sharing stories of their students with us, and we talk a lot about it. And one of our members has said that one of her students entered second grade having never been in a school environment before. And so that student was completely overwhelmed by a change in environment and a structure that they've never experienced before, and would often run out of the classroom in tears and be unwilling to re-enter that classroom. After spending several months working with that member, the student is now able to stay in the classroom and is actively building relationships with students, and has even has a lot of interest in technology and is willing to be kind of like the tech guru in that classroom and helps the other students. And so it's been really, that member's really proud of that, because, that's a big change for that kid in really a small amount of time when we think about it. Another kind of unique and interesting thing is that our members are recognizing that they're also building on their own social and emotional learning and learning from curriculum that is meant for kindergarten through 5th grade students, right? So it goes to show that, we gain knowledge from the different things that we do. So moving into volunteer DBQ, so up here you'll see that 2023 had continued a positive trajectory of documented community service in Dubuque. So we had over 1,200 new users, 22 new organizations to the website, 189 opportunities, and 2,500 volunteer responses. So meaning members signed up for that many opportunities. Our staff continue to engage nonprofits, educational institutions, community groups, city departments to identify opportunities to utilize volunteer service to achieve organizational goals, but also to engage people as volunteers themselves. And also to even engage business communities in figuring out how can businesses create volunteer time off policies so that their employees can go and participate in volunteer activities during the workday, whether that's mentoring a student or being able to take off for something like days of caring and be able to be paid for that event. And thankfully, the city has one of those. So we're always excited to see when our staff members are able to utilize that benefit. Now, based off of the documented service that we have access to in volunteer DBQ, we've estimated that the volunteerism in Dubuque for 2023 has had a $271,000 economic impact in our community. So the value of a volunteer hour is identified through an organization called the Independent Sector. They have an overall estimation for a volunteer hour in total, and that's about $32 an hour, but they also break that down by state. And so the current for Iowa is $28.09. So if we take that and calculate it out by how many documented hours that we have, and again, this is just what we've been able to identify. This is honestly nowhere near the amount of volunteerism that is actually happening in Dubuque. Most of the documented hours that we have are from Days of Caring and Spartans Make a Difference Day, and you can see that one day of service of getting, couple hundred of volunteers together, right, has about, well over $100,000 of economic impact. And so just from Days of Caring and Spartan Make a Difference Day, that number is basically the impact that we've been able to determine that we've had. So this shows that, even one person taking one day to volunteer can make a huge difference, because that has collectively an incredible impact that someday we will be able to bring that amazing number to you as we be able to document that better as a community. And then diversion and prevention. So staff have been hard at work trying to untangle really what I've kind of been calling a bowl of spaghetti noodles that is the criminal justice system. It's kind of, everyone is connected in a lot of different ways as far as entities, but there's also a lot of gaps and where they don't quite connect very well, and that our residents often fall into those gaps, right? And then you see that they just kind of cycle through that system repeatedly. So our staff have been meeting with judges, public defenders, social workers, police officers, residents, community organizations, in an effort to understand the way that each entity operates, the services that those entities provide, and how they interconnect with each other, both in the positives and the negatives. And through these meetings and conversations, we've been able to identify pain points that can be pretty consistent across organizations. So an example of that is we know that, like the jail, for example, they don't have enough staffing to be able to identify a lot of the data of race and gender and key demographic information that we would hope that they would have, just because they're so deeply overwhelmed, right? So, but that's pretty consistent across a lot of organizations. So we're missing some of those data points that tells us about who's really being impacted the most. So that's just one example. But we've also been able to identify gaps in services and also opportunities to address some of those needs as well. Staff have also been working on researching models that communities similar to Dubuque and also communities not so similar to Dubuque have been using, and identifying processes that address the financial impact that fines and fees, both on a criminal and a civil level, meaning like civil as what we issue to community members as a city, have on residents, while also keeping in mind the impacts of poverty have on those residents, and also understanding that many of these people, poverty is already traumatic, right? homelessness is traumatic in and of itself, and that the interactions that they have with us as city staff, that we have to be very cognizant of, are we helping or are we hurting? So in an effort to try to minimize as much harm as we can, and then trying to disrupt that cycle of trauma and that cycle of harm that tends to happen. So we look forward to giving you some more information on the work that has been happening in this area. So the requested property tax support for the Office of Community Impact, I'd say we're a pretty cheap date at $2.30 per homeowner. Our improvement packages, so we have our volunteer DBQ platform upgrade. So we're looking to shift from the Galaxy Digital Get Connected platform to an organization called Be With. And it is honestly a sandbox, and we can really build this platform up to what we're looking for volunteer DBQ, both on our side as staff and how we're managing things, to the resident side and how they're able to access information and sign up for volunteer opportunities, and the organization side. So it would really create an opportunity for us to streamline things and really make it work well for Dubuque. Not that Get Connected isn't great, but sometimes if you can really streamline things to make it work for yourself and work for your community, it makes a big difference. And then we also have the work from home technology packages for the Office of Community Impact staff. So all of our staff have already been equipped with laptops from the get-go. A lot of the times we're taking meetings not at Bunker Hill but elsewhere. And so we have a lot of high mobility happening with all of our staff. And so sometimes it just makes more sense that if somebody's able to, plug in at home because it's closer to where their meeting is, and then go into the office back and forth, there's a lot of running that we do. But it would allow for more flexibility and employee retention. Please don't connect that back to me leaving. But with that, I thank you for the opportunity to share about the work that we've been doing, and the great staff that we have as part of this team, and the great AmeriCorps members and volunteers that have been making a really great difference in Dubuque.
Well, thank you, Heather, for the presentation. So we are in a public hearing to discuss the Office of Community Impact's budget for fiscal year 25. Do we have anyone who would like to provide public input on that budget? Seeing no one here virtually?
No.
Nothing virtually?
No written input.
All right, and back to us for any discussion and questions.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Jones.
you're going to leave a mark, without a doubt. Just over the last decade, the change in almost nothing being there that resembles this to all the fantastic things you just presented on. Very proud and very impressed, so
Thank you.
good luck.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Ms. Farber.
A grand ditto and a grand thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and I'll echo that, Heather. I mean, thank you for sharing the news with us. I appreciate you being here for one last hurrah for a good late night party of a budget presentation here, and of course, really do appreciate the all the work that has gone into this. This is actually putting this together into an Office of Community Impact in this way. It really does, I think, help us to be able to see that vision that we've been trying to create for a long time. The AmeriCorps program is central to what we do and central to what is done in the community. And you've been at the helm of that for a while and have been very, very helpful in making sure that all of that work gets done well. But like you mentioned, it's a program that continues to be under attack on a regular basis. And the federal and state funding is a real challenge with all the things that you're doing here. I was really sorry to hear about the challenges that you faced with another bill that was passed last year that impacted schools. And it sounds like, what you said is we're finding a way through that.
We are.
Is that generally what the answer is that you figured out ways to streamline the process to make it work for you and
Yes.
for the people you're serving?
Yes, thankfully, being
creative and being willing to, the hope is that federally that they'll understand that this isn't something that we can have control over, right? And so when it comes to making sure that our program has the most effective data and proving that we're data-driven, that if we had had this screener and all of these data pieces, that would have made our life a lot easier and really given a lot of proof to the methodology. Long-term, I think there'll be some impacts with that based off of how it currently exists. But realistically, our AmeriCorps members are dedicated to our students, our staff, and we know that the teachers in our school system is dedicated to those students. And so while it is more cumbersome and has taken a lot of work on all parties, I think that we have come through this to figure out a way to continually serve the students as best as we can. So I don't think we're impacting or serving as many students as we could, or to the level that we could. But I think that we're doing the best we can.
Well, and I appreciate that, but I would also appreciate if our state would be a partner in that process, more than a barrier at times. And that's really challenging. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Something else that we can add to the list to talk to our legislators about as we try to advocate for the people we're trying our best to serve. So thank you. Well, Heather, thank you very much for one last presentation here. We really appreciate it, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we are on to our final presentation of the evening. Last but not least, as they say, the Multicultural Family Center. So we'll get switched over here for a moment and then get started.
I know it.
All right, well, you're ready to go. We are ready to go.
I would say I've done many speaking presentations, and this is the first one that I've done past my bedtime. I just want to start with that, but we'll get going here.
I'm just going to tell you, it's time to change your bedtime.
Well, again, I just want to really quick introduce myself. My name's Antonio Mozon, and I have the honor in serving at the Multicultural Family Center as a director. I first want to say thank you to the City Council for making diversity, equity, inclusion a priority in our community. It's extremely important, and those values drive our mission. So thank you so much for your leadership. I also want to say thank you to Mike. You manage a whole city, but still somehow you find time to show up, whether it's serving tacos at an event or in a truck passing out turkeys to the community. You show up, and it matters. And so we appreciate that. It doesn't go unnoticed to everyone at the MFC, but also to people in our community. So thank you so much. I want to acknowledge before taking on this role, I did my homework, and I was able to dive into the hearing from last year. And there was something that you brought up, Mayor, that I want to address. You brought up this idea of really creating an identity with the MFC, right? We've had past directors. And so I want to share an experience that we get to have, but one in particular that really brings that question to light. I have to remember to actually push these slides here. Representative from the Open World Program, sponsored by the Congressional Office of International Leadership, reached out to me. There were delegates and leaders from Kosovo who were traveling in our state. And as some of you may know, Kosovo is a newly found independent country. And so they're still in this place where some places around the world recognize their independence and others don't yet. As I was giving this tour, first I want to acknowledge that they chose the MFC as a place to visit when talking about multiculturalism and inclusion, which I thought spoke volumes. But as I was given the tour to the delegates from and leaders from Kosovo, I asked them just to kind of organically walk around our facility and check out the spaces, and they began to do so. And shortly after, there was this uproar of celebration and joy that happened. And so just as your heads are turning, my head turned too, and I go into our main space, and all of the leaders and delegates are pointing at their flag being represented on our wall. And you would think that they just won the war in that moment. The joy, the celebration, the happiness that was in that moment. I can't really even speak into words what that felt like for everyone there. And so if you look in this photo on the top right, it says, "Thank you for making us feel home and represented." And they found out that we can, write on our walls, and that's the message that one of the leaders wrote. And for me, that speaks to the identity of what the MFC is. For so many in our community, it's a place where people feel home. They feel seen, they feel valued, they feel honored and celebrated. And that's what we get to do at the Multicultural Family Center. Our mission statement, everything that we do is powered through our mission. The Multicultural Family Center empowers all families and community members of Dubuque to reach their full potential and to build unity through diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's the what we do. And the how we do it, we are still working through our strategic planning session with our board. But we do them through three different ways: through cultural and identity celebrations, through adult programming, and through our youth programming. And I'll dive into details as we go on. As you all know, you've seen this in past presentations, we have this very unique and beautiful partnership with the City of Dubuque and the Multicultural Family Center. The city provides and pays for all the lights, the bills, the staff, the leadership, et cetera. And the mission is really powered through the leaders within our board of directors. I want to take a quick moment just to acknowledge this phenomenal multicultural diverse board that we have. I've been in Dubuque since 2006, and often as I enter banks and buildings and different organizations, I look at the leadership within those organizations and I don't see many people who look like me. And that's something that we're continuing to work on. But we are extremely proud that we have diverse voices who really power our mission. We have people who are able to share their own lived experiences to come up with very creative and innovative programs, events for our community. And that would not be possible without the partnership between the city and the MFC. And so our board is made up of very dynamic people, and all of them you will find at any of our events in the mix of it. I just want to acknowledge our board members, if you can wave really quick back there. The long hours, the long events, the planning, I would not change this group of people for the world. Obviously, we are going to continue to grow our board, but we have a pretty strong team. Leadership starts from the top down, and our board is phenomenal. So thank you so much. I also want to acknowledge new faces. So everyone on the screen is new as of this past year. Again, myself as director, we have our site supervisors that we were able to hire in October, Emily, Dale, and Ari. But I also want to give a special just moment of recognition to our assistant director. As all of you may know, Sarah has served 10 plus years at the Multicultural Family Center. And she has been through many different teams, but she has been the consistent heartbeat of the organization. Her passion for diversity and inclusion is unmatched. And she really just is a huge asset to the organization. So happy 10 years, and we appreciate you so much. Okay, and our site supervisors, as we were going through this process and building our team, especially when we're talking about equity, and inclusion. Many times you don't see the passion and compassion of people in the resumes that they bring to the table. And so our philosophy is we do tend to interview quite a bit of people because we believe in the diamonds in the rough and the things that you can't teach on paper that's related to credentials. And all of our site supervisors, they have that compassion for people and love for equity and inclusion and belonging. And that's something, again, you don't see on the resumes, but when you walk in a building, you feel it. And so I just wanted to acknowledge them as well. Also, just so you have this visual of the partnership between the MFC and the city, we have two different sides. The entire building is the Multicultural Family Center, but we do have staff within Leisure Services who are able to, as Dan mentioned, provide that customer service and the resources that we have within our community. And so I thought that visual was important to show as well. And then the organization is made up of the power of our community. And so this is a community effort, and that's the beauty of it. I do also want to acknowledge, because I do have our board member here, NAACP is a huge partner with the Multicultural Family Center. I don't want to get any flack from him later. So definitely NAACP is also on here as well. But we are so grateful for our partners. This is not all of the people who help make our programs and event equitable and inclusive for our community, but we wanted to highlight a few here. I absolutely have to echo many of the things that Heather mentioned up here and just highlight how critical our AmeriCorps members are to our programming. We have two game changers here in the building, Bailey and Jakina. Please wave. We appreciate you so much. Just to put this in perspective, in the month of February, which is the shortest month of the year, we were able to serve 117 individual teenagers. We average anywhere from 40 to 60. Our highest individual day was about 76 teens in one day. And when you think about that, and currently we don't have a teen coordinator, it's myself, Bailey, Jakina, and Sarah in those spaces with 76 teens. We also have our site supervisors who are part of that. But we also, we've grown this very solid family philosophy at the Multicultural Family Center. And we have healing circles after every teen night where we have to just process and check in, and they're beneficial to everyone. But I just wanted to highlight how important the partnership with AmeriCorps is to our operations. So thank you again for your work and your passion. So I highlight this past year, it was really important that we got engaged with the community. Again, our mission is powered and fueled through our Dubuque community. And so it was extremely important that we were visible in as many spaces as possible, and we were able to share the mission and what we do here. With that, I thought it was extremely exciting that we were recognized on the state level. And next week, we were invited to speak at the Iowa Rural Development Summit. And this is a summit made up of a bunch of important people within our state. And we're going to share about the work that we're doing here in Dubuque and how we're creating a more inclusive community. And so we're not only strengthening our relationships locally, but we're also strengthening our relationships statewide and also nationally. I did get invited to a Kosovo Facebook group. I'm just saying, all right? Kind of excited about that. So let's dive into those three pillars I mentioned. Cultural identity celebrations. For our Juneteenth event, I'm just going to highlight a few. We have many, but again, these events really create spaces for different people, unique people, to celebrate, honor, and educate, the diversity within our community. Our Juneteenth event was a 3-day event that had over 900 people in attendance. It was a phenomenal day. It was one that I will never forget, and I know many other people within our community will never forget as well. Our India Independence Celebration was another huge event. We had over 250 people in the MFC. Again, a philosophy is we do all events with, not for, meaning they're authentic. They're hosted and they're made up of committees of people who are a part of that identity or that culture. To really bring that sense of authenticity and important bit of education to each identity as well. And then we have our Pride Family Picnic. Again, over 850 people at an event. I also want to note when you're talking about events that are outdoors, we're counting them through wristbands, and sometimes not everybody's getting a wristband. And so just also consider it's hard to collect data on actual numbers. We know this is at least how many wristbands we were able to give out. But there's also people who come from different parts of the community who get into the event, and so it's a huge part of what we do as well. And then our cultural cooking events. Again, I have to say, I have the best job ever. When we can bring people who are from Columbia, and we can bring that culture, those traditions, and we can educate our community, and we can embrace the vibrant colors and music and dances. I mean, the amount of dances that I know now as director, I'm just saying, we can have a dance out here. But it's just such a beautiful thing. We can bring people together from different identity groups, and we can learn from one another and grow. Transitioning to our adult programs. We are extremely passionate about upward mobility for the adults in our community. I know they say education is power, but I would also like to add access to education is power. And so we've been focused on, as we have this phenomenal partnership with the Office of Shared Prosperity, our Employment Empowerment Expo really created a space where people were able to practice job readiness skills, interview skills. They took professional headshots. We were able to partner with IO Works as well and work on resume building, but really creating spaces for people to learn how to grow and reach their full potential. We also partner with Green State, and what was really cool is a part of the secret sauce of the MFC, in many communities, you can tell, the demographics is very, it's a white space or a space for, Marshallese community or Hispanic community, but the MFC, all people take ownership of the MFC. And that's a part of our secret sauce, and that's the beauty of this. And so when we bring resources to this space, and we have people from underrepresented communities who are asking questions about home ownership, and they're receiving the resources, and they're making meaning and sense of it in their own lives, it's really cool to just see those connections happen in our spaces. And then, again, with our adult program, it's important we lean into becoming a community who is able to talk about tough conversations related to identity. Corey, I know you brought up last Tuesday the statistics related to people of color in the workforce. And in order for us to truly prioritize minorities in this community, we have to learn and be comfortable to lean into these tough conversations and to talk about race and gender and socioeconomic status, et cetera, the many different things that make up our identity. And so we prioritize that. All of our programs are wrapped around creating a safe space for people. David, I believe you brought this up, for people to be able to ask questions and feel okay to ask these questions with the hopes of creating a more equitable community. And so we had a few events related to that, but we also have every Saturday, we have spaces for adults to get together and connect with different identity groups and learn and grow. And that's important. That's a part of our philosophy at the MFC. And then the third pillar is our teen programming. It's made up of hangout, teen nights, tutoring, art club, book club. I would say, as a dad, hangouts is my least favorite time because it's unstructured, but it's important, right? It's right after school, so our kids come and they just kind of unwind from school. And then we dive into the teen programming that our teen coordinator and AmeriCorps are so creatively in coming up with. We'll talk about access is a huge philosophy of ours at the MFC. I had the benefit of taking about 36 teens on a field trip to a hockey game. And it was many of their first hockey game, and it was my first ever hockey game. And I remember sitting in the back, just watching all the teens just enjoy living their best life. And one teen in front of me said, "This is the best spring break we had in a long time." And obviously she was yelling because at hockey games, you can yell at the top of your lungs, and the energy is amazing. Again, this is the first time that many of those teens were there. We got to take our teens to see a black violinist at the Heritage Center at the University of Dubuque, and to see a person who looks like many of our teens play a violin and play songs from Drake and Alicia Keys and different R&B artists. It brought identities together and gave them a different perspective, a broader perspective in life. And that was awesome. So I love our field trips too. And then we got to work with our Black Men's Coalition, and we hosted a trades day. And this was really cool because we got our kids exposed to different opportunities out there. Again, just giving them access to things that they might not have access on their day-to-days. And they're asking questions, and they're building relationships. And so they're able to see a police officer up close and ask questions, or a firefighter, or someone who works in the healthcare. And again, representation is important, and many of those identities were represented there. And then lastly, our Summer Teen Empowerment Program is our 6-week summer program. We focus on leadership development. Teens in this program have the opportunity to gain a high school credit. So we've partnered with our school district, so they get a high school credit in completing that program. And we provide a stipend. This curriculum is wrapped around social and emotional learning, financial literacy, employability, and community service. It's extremely important, and research shows that when people get involved, especially young people, get involved in contributing to their community and finding their purpose, they're more likely to be successful, and we want to create opportunity for that. So that's extremely exciting. Again, some visuals just to show you the growth of the program. I know it was a goal for us to grow our teen program, and we're doing that. Again, the shortest month of the year, 113, these numbers do not include homework help and book club, so these numbers are a bit higher. But as you can see through the visual, we have a consistent growth. Again, I want you to be mindful. We have a teen coordinator who runs that program. And I want you to note that how I develop these numbers is the number starts over every month, right? So this does not count for consistent attendance. This is in the month of September, we served 67 individual teens. We start to 0. In the month of October, we served 89, right? This does not say how much of the 113 come every single week, which they do, right? And then future initiatives, as we wrap things up, we are a family center. And so again, as we dive into our strategic planning with our board of directors, we want to make sure that we also focus on creating more spaces to build stronger families. I believe Steve brought this up before. We, many Black leaders within our community got together 2 weeks ago, and we said we wanted to create this space and opportunity for our downtown community. And with that event, we had over 700 people in attendance. These are families coming together, grandmothers with grandchildren, grandfathers with grandchildren, siblings running around, parents with their children, having a phenomenal time. A quote I wanted to share from one of the volunteers from this event in particular. This community member says, "Being a part of this event was a deeply inspiring experience. The sense of community was beyond words. I met so many incredible people. This is what we get to do, right? And so as we continue to talk about the identity and what we do at the MFC, we really want to be intentional with everything driving through our mission, focused on the cultural events and celebration. Again, we celebrate to educate, focused on upward mobility for our adults, access to education and resources, and focused on our youth and developing better leaders, and focused on our families. Creating spaces to where, as a father of 4 kids, 1 on the way, 5, help me. It's important that we have inclusive spaces. I know, Danny's like, what? It's important that we have inclusive spaces where I can bring my kids, where I can bring my children to, and we can color together, or we can engage in an activity, and we can create moments and memories. And that's what the MFC is about. That's what we get to do. And we're all extremely excited to do it there. So we talk about performance measures. I know last year's budget hearing, we spoke about our team programming, and we are growing. We're growing with our team programming. Now we really want to focus on our culture events, because that's another pillar of ours. And so if you look at 22's numbers, we had 36 events with 4,674 community members. And 23 calendar year, we had 23 events, so fewer events, more people. Fewer events, more people. And then our target is to be consistent with collecting data. And so, again, aiming for about 20 of those cultural events, serving 5,000 plus people as we move forward. And so for this space, it costs the average homeowner $10.10, which when I found that out, I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And this is what we get to do in creating an equitable community. We talk about these pillars, and this was one of the best gifts that I was able to receive in implementing our strategy at the MFC. But I also, again, as I mentioned, think it's extremely important to acknowledge that resources are few. I want to echo some of the voices that were shared last year at last year's budget hearing. We're in a space where we are serving quite a bit people, and we do have 3 full-time positions and 3 part-time positions. And so when we talk about ideas of sustainability and equity, we definitely can continue to work on that. But we are, again, extremely grateful to serve in this capacity. We are in a space where we get to create a sense of belonging in our community for all people. And that's something extremely special when we're talking about community and equitable practices. So again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your support.
All right, well, Antonio, thank you very much for the presentation. We are in a public hearing to talk about the Multicultural Family Center Fiscal Year 2025 budget. Do we have any public input on this budget this evening? Seeing no one here, I'll give you a second. I see heads turning over there. Do we have anyone virtually?
Oh, yes, I am so sorry. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll go back to public input in a minute. Yeah, no problem.
I tried my whole life to stay out of a courtroom, and I'm in a courtroom.
Yeah.
Now, you know?
You're actually in a courtroom. I know, it's weird. Yeah.
So Celebrate Africa, I did want to just plug that really quick. It's an event coming up and an opportunity for you to attend or spread the word. April 13th, it's a Saturday from 12 to 3 p.m. I should know that, but I got Sarah, right? From 12 to 3 p.m., and so I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that as well.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, back to any other public input before we bring it back to the desk.
I'm Marlene Waller, 13322 Sherrill Road, Dubuque, Iowa. I can't sit here all these hours and not say something. Antonio's only been with us since July, and we have just seen numbers go up. And engagement of staff and people coming into the center, bringing back adult programs is just so refreshing. And for the board, you know, COVID and after that and changeover in leadership, we weren't having active committees, and now we're all engaged and very, very active in reaching out to the community for community members that maybe aren't ready to join a board, but maybe they can help us on a committee. So I can't say enough about Antonio and his team for what they do for the MFC and the spirit that he has brought back to Dubuque. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marlene, for your comments. Anyone else here? Anyone virtually, Corey?
There aren't any visual comments, but I do want to acknowledge there have been a couple of MFC board members on most of the night, so I wanted to thank them for staying on with us.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Thanks for being here.
No input.
All right, thank you very much, Adrian. All right, back to the table then. Mike, I saw your hand go up. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Antonio's talked about a lot of great events that were sponsored over the last year at the facility, and I appreciate your acknowledgement that I've had the great joy to attend several of them. But one of them that I attended that you didn't mention, I thought was really important. So the building is named after Ruby Sutton. And so Antonio held a Ruby Sutton birthday party. And he had the whole family come, and the family members all got to get up and speak and tell their story about their memories of their mother. And it was just really a beautiful evening.
And I want to make sure credit is given where it's due. So Dale Carroll is a site supervisor of ours. Her and Lenny within our facility. And Jakina. Oh, and Jakina, yes. They all got together, and I believe Jakina was looking at the mural that's in there, and she asked a question. And it started with a question, and it evolved into a very beautiful event. So again, thank you to our staff. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Others? Yeah, Mr. Sprague.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have the unique position of being involved on a committee with the MFC for the lovely Pride event that will be happening on June 1st. And I cannot say enough or thank the MFC for helping that happen. A lot of folks, when we have, and talking to folks about it these last few years, are amazed that, one, the city has an event, and the fact that it's just so welcoming and inclusive. Folks have gotten to see part of our community in positive light, and they want to see these events continue. So I'm looking forward to our next party that we're planning. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Resnick.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So it's obvious to everyone in this room, at least, that the work that you're doing at the Multicultural Family Center is so important, and I'm glad it seems that you're getting a lot of personally affected by this as well, with your enthusiasm, with things, how are things going. One thing that's been disturbing to me a little bit last few years is how diversity, equity, and inclusion has gotten some kind of a bad name but actually, you know what zero-sum game is? Some people think that by one group winning, another group loses. And actually what you're proving down there is when one group is winning, we're all winning as a society. And you're bringing up everybody. And so when you say you're prioritizing, underrepresented people, that doesn't mean that others are affected badly by that. We're all affected in a good way by what you're doing. And so I'm glad that you're inspired. I can tell that your group is inspired. We're inspired by what you're doing. I just say more, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Resnick.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Farber.
So I would like to know your recipe for your secret sauce that you talked about. And owning a restaurant, sauce is extremely important
You
to
have some pretty good
pizzas.
recipes yourself.
Yeah. So I will look forward to you sharing that recipe and your enthusiasm and just the collegiality of your team just in the output and everything, all the projects and programs is very impressive. So thank you for that. You did mention about your staffing and that you had 3 full-time, 3 part-time. How are you situated? Do you need more? Are you comfortable? What is your thought on that? Because I know we talked about this last year as well.
Thanks for asking. When I was appointed in July, our improvement package were due in October. And when I just recently bought a home a few years ago, and a mentor shared with me, he said, Antonio, make sure you live in your home for at least a year until you make any major changes. And it worked out for my first home pretty well. And I think my leadership philosophy, it stays true to that philosophy, I heard the input from the community, but I wanted to make sure that we were able to make a sound and informed decision in relation to staffing. Now that I've been here 9 months, and I've shared some of the numbers with you, I would say 100% we definitely need more resources to support our events. When you talk about resiliency, it's the staff who are in the seats that allow this to be sustainable. But again, the way my marriage is set up, I don't know if my wife's gonna give me any more time, So I would say absolutely yes, we definitely need just more resources so that we can continue to serve the community in this capacity, definitely.
Can you define the resources a little bit more clearly, or is this something you would like to get back to us on?
I can definitely get back to you. I would also say when we're talking about equity, we could use, and sustainability, we can use more full-time positions. Again, our part-time site supervisor positions are not careers, right? They're kind of stepping stones so you can get experience in the workforce, you can grow your resume, but it's not designed to be a sustainable position. And so if we had opportunity around that, along with other things that Sarah, I, and the rest of the team are discussing in relation to sustainability, that's something I would like to get back to you on.
Okay,
I'd like to have a solid plan.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and you understand what we're going through now with our budgeting process, but I'm sure in the future that might be something to further explore based upon all that you're doing and all the commitment and the time that it takes for staff to help support these programs. So again, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Bethel.
So I recall from our last goal setting that we were all really excited that you were on board, and then we said, well, how do we support them? And then we said, maybe we need to give them a little time. And so I hope that this year at goal setting, we'll have some more specific ideas that we can build on for support. So a thing with goal setting that I really enjoy is that even if somebody doesn't make it to a top goal and priority, we have great conversations about the work that department is doing, maybe the needs of the community that are very deep discussions, but it doesn't make it necessarily to a top priority, and that's okay. It's still the process moving forward, and maybe the next year we go further with it. Yeah. And so I hope to learn more about that as you kind of feel more grounded in your role and what the needs will be for our community. I wanted to share, I work in healthcare, and I had the privilege of going in my healthcare role to a diversity, equity, inclusion conference sponsored by the Mayo Clinic. And I learned so much about what I need to think about. I guess that's the best way to say it. And first of all, to be uncomfortable. That is number one. And I never thought about that as a positive. It truly helped me to understand that when we are on the edge of uncomfortable, we grow. And so I see that you're doing that with the community in really important ways and bringing numbers of people in who otherwise wouldn't have maybe met and created shared food and company with people who they never would have otherwise been paired with. Yeah. The other thing that was really impactful for me, there was just a panel of physicians who were individuals of color who got up and spoke about why they became physicians. And there was one story about a gentleman who, the only person that he really knew of color in his high school was his biology teacher. And he said, well, maybe I should become a biology teacher. And then he was enrolled in a program because the biology teacher said, you should really do this. And that person said, well, maybe you should go to medical school. And he'd never thought about it. but he started to see people were in that looked like him in roles that he could aspire to, and it was like a light for him. And so I want to commend everybody who's on your board, because your engagement and all of you that work there, you never know when that one little light will happen. And I think that you are so entrenched in those opportunities to help people who otherwise might not experience the light. So thanks.
Thank you for sharing that. With my own identity, living in Dubuque, where our demographics as such, that belief system is very real, right? Being able to see a version of you in places of influence and impact is extremely important. And so I appreciate you speaking to that, because that makes a difference in someone's life and this belief of what we can and cannot do, and how we can give to our communities with our gifts. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Yeah, Mr. Jones.
The MFC makes me unbelievably proud of this community. First of all, that it exists, which drive through most towns, you could look through the Multicultural Family Center for a long time and not find it. But second of all, the level that you bring to the community, how much you improve communication and reduce fear and improve safety of the community by all of those things, it is a tremendous effort, and it's tremendously working. And I wish we could jack up your resources to help it work better and reach farther. I think we're all thinking that. I think we're all going to work towards that. And I think everybody understands the situation that we're in with the modest tax increase having to happen to keep the lights on everywhere. But, oh my God, you guys are making a mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and first of all, thank you for the presentation. And I love the fact that you brought the pictures to show us, what this year really looked like. I mean, this is what the MFC is. This is what the MFC looks like on a daily basis and on an annual basis. And it was a really great thing to be able to see. And thank you for speaking to some of the challenges that you recognized last year before you took on this position. Now you're bringing here to discuss a little more. I appreciate your homeowner analogy. I think that's a really good one, to be able to sit with something. But I have another recollection from that conversation that I don't think has been brought up yet, and that was what you mentioned early in your presentation about the strategic plan that's being done by the board. Because what I recall is that we discussed how staffing was, in order to make staffing decisions, you need to make those decisions based on the information that you have, but then also the plan that you have. And the plan isn't something that has been looked at that much in this unique marriage, as you pointed out, of the nonprofit organization and the city coming together to be able to do this. So I'm really encouraged to hear that the strategic planning is moving forward. Can you give us an update on kind of the themes that people are learning through this, or anything that, any sort of update you have for us on the strategic plan process?
So we've had a few strategic planning sessions already, and we really focused on some really vital operational details within the board. Talking about committees, responsibilities, roles, that was huge, and just identifying what the role of the programming committee and the chair, the development committee, the governance committee, finance committee, et cetera. And for each other committees to know how all the other moving parts are working in the organization. And so that's what we focused on, kind of the working parts of the organization. And then we focused on some finance and developmental strategies to really put us in a good financial standing to execute these programs and events. And so we have another strategic planning session coming up now, where we're diving into these 4 pillars and being much more intentional with our programming and how we're moving in the community. And so that's going to be the main focus of this next session, is really diving into, again, the mission and the 4 pillars of adult programming, youth programming, cultural events, celebrations, and building stronger families, and what values align with that and what programs align with that in order to continue to push our mission forward. And so that's been a lot of our conversations. We've also been focused on identifying the voices that we don't have at the table, right? And the needs, and being very intentional about strategizing how we can recruit to our board so that we have a well-rounded, diversity. And so those have been some of the conversations that we've had within our strategic plan.
That's great. I appreciate that update. I think that's really helpful to know. Because I think when we talk about these things like staffing and programming and where, I mean, this whole discussion is about where the dollars go, right? And what we're going to be able to do with what we truly value, because this is something we value. It exists in Dubuque, doesn't exist in other places. It's something we want to make sure that we support. But it is well, I shouldn't say but, and staffing discussions are challenging, especially right now. I mean, if one of the most heartbreaking things about this budget that we're looking at, and it's not anybody's fault necessarily, at least here, but it's not anybody's fault. I think, one of the challenges that we have is that there are so many staffing requests that have been made that, I mean, almost all of them are a no this year. It's just the way it is. It's a really difficult year to have that discussion. So the more we can have the good information that shows us what staffing is needed based on the numbers that are there and the plan that goes with it within each department to be able to help us to make those decisions and prioritize these things during goals and priority sessions is really useful for us to be able to do that. And I think, because I'm also cognizant of the fact that, I was looking at your staffing that you have an open position that's an important one. The Teen Empowerment Coordinator is a really important position to be able to put in there. But then also the seasonal positions that you have that come along with that. All that picture goes together to be able to make the best decision possible when it comes to staffing too. So I appreciate that we're looking at all those things at the same time and that the strategic plan is a part of that as well.
Yeah. I would say
go
to
ahead.
that, oh, sorry.
No, please.
Just bigger picture, and again, what we're working on is the specifics of it. But we are currently in a situation where we have about, again, an average of 45 to 60 plus teens with a teen coordinator and 2 full-time AmeriCorps members. And so in order for us to really provide the services that our teens deserve, that's the big picture, just to kind of provide the need.
Yeah.
With our events, there are thousands of people who attend this event. And we have Sarah, who's our event guru, along with our site supervisors and the community volunteers that we try to build strong relationships. But those are the situations that we're in now, big picture. And so we'll continue to work on those details to see what exactly those positions are.
Yeah, and those numbers are really good to see too of the growth. I mean, if it continues at this exponential level, then we're having a new conversation, aren't we? I mean, that definitely is important. Yeah. Well, Antonio, I'm going to just echo everybody. The energy you brought to this has been really wonderful, but the energy that your team surrounding you has brought to this has been really wonderful. So I'm just really excited by the things that we're seeing from the Multicultural Family Center, and most importantly because we talk about making sure that we can see people who look like us in the spaces that we're in, and making sure that we can see that everybody has that potential. But one of the things that I also think I want to make sure that we recognize is that Dubuque is home for everybody who lives here, no matter what we look like and who we are and where we come from, what our culture is. We live together. That's the thing we all share. This is our home. And I think that places like the Multicultural Family Center and the culture that you've created there allow people to feel home in a way that is unique and I think just wonderful. I'm really happy that we have this opportunity in Dubuque, and I'm really happy that we are going to continue to support it and continue to have the tough conversations, like you pointed out, on how we support that best, because I think we do need to have those. But that's what makes a community, I think, a place that more people want to call home, is a place that's willing to enter into those difficult conversations and challenge each other to be even better so that we can all have this place together with ourselves. So thank you very much for the work that you do and for the presentation and for staying up a little later than your bedtime. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of tonight, at least. So we'll see everybody back here on, I don't even know what day it is, Tuesday. See you back here on Thursday, but thank you very much for being here. No further business tonight, so we are adjourned.